Hello and thank you for joining for tonight's stories. I hope you enjoy. The Ruins of Hunger. A Wendigo Horror. Audio log. Columbia Mountains Archaeological Survey, Day 4, 23, 47 hours. Static, heavy breathing. The sound of boots crunching through frozen underbrush at a dead run. Dr. Sheppard, gasping. This is Dr. Shane Sheppard, lead researcher, site designation. Static burst, designation Alpha 7. If anyone finds this recorder, a branch snaps close by and Sheppard's breath hitches. Christ, it's close. It's so close. Whispering the others are dead, all of them. Russo, Lena, the students. A sound like wet fabric tearing, distant but unmistakable. Sheppard's footsteps falter, then resume at a panicked sprint. Dr. Sheppard, it's not human. It smiles with too many teeth. The jaw unhinges like static, 3 seconds of dead air. The ruins weren't abandoned. They were sealed to keep it in, and we opened. A crash, something heavy falling, Sheppard crying out, no. No, 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 please, I have a family, I have. A sound begins. At first it resembles laughter, high, tittering, inhuman. Then it shifts, becoming something between a snarl and a wet, eager breathing. Sheppard screams. The recorder hits the ground. There is the sound of running, then a wet impact, then silence. End of recovered audio. Begin transcript reconstruction. 72 hours earlier. The helicopter banked hard against the mountain wind, and Dr. Shane Sheppard gripped his seatbelt with white knuckles, watching the Columbia Mountains rise to swallow them. Below, the forest stretched endless and black, a sea of pine and spruce that had stood since before Europeans stumbled onto this continent. Somewhere down there, hidden beneath centuries of growth and silence, lay the reason for this expedition. "You look like you're going to vomit," Lena Blackwood said, shouting over the rotor wash. She sat across from him, her dark hair pulled back in a practical braid, her eyes, the color of weathered copper, fixed on his face with that expression she wore when she was cataloging his weaknesses. "I'm fine," Sheppard lied, "just don't like flying. In small aircraft, in bad weather, over uncharted terrain." Lena's mouth twisted into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You picked a hell of a career for someone who doesn't like flying, Shane." He didn't answer. There was no point in explaining that his discomfort wasn't about the helicopter or the wind shear that made the fuselage shudder like a dying animal. It was about what waited below. About the satellite imagery that had brought them here. Geometric shapes beneath the canopy that shouldn't exist, that matched no known geological formation. About the Cree tribal records that Dr. Harlow had spent 3 years translating, records that spoke of a cursed ruin, where the hungry ones had been imprisoned by ancient medicine men. Superstition. That's what he'd told the university board when he'd pitched this expedition. An archaeological anomaly with potential cultural significance. Nothing more. But looking at Lena's face, her indigenous features set in that mask of professional skepticism that barely concealed her unease, he wondered if she knew something he didn't. The helicopter descended through a break in the clouds, and Sheppard saw their destination for the first time. A narrow valley carved between 2 peaks, thick with old-growth forest that seemed darker than the surrounding woodland. The trees there were taller, older, their branches interlocking to form a canopy so dense it appeared almost black from above. "That's it," Dr. Harlow's voice crackled over the comms. The aging folklorist sat up front with the pilot, his 70-year-old frame hunched over a tablet displaying those same satellite images. The Valley of the Wendigo. The Cree called it the place where winter never leaves. "It's August," Russo said from beside Sheppard. The expedition's security specialist, a former Army Ranger with a scar running from his left ear to his jaw, didn't look up from cleaning his sidearm. "Winter left." "The Cree meant a different kind of winter," Harlow replied, and there was something in his voice that made Sheppard turn to look at him. The old man's eyes were fixed on the dark valley below, and they shone with a light that might have been academic excitement or might have been something else entirely. The winter of the soul, the hunger that never ends. The helicopter touched down in a clearing barely large enough for its skids, and the team disembarked in a crouch, ducking beneath the slowing rotors. Shepard counted heads as they unloaded equipment. 7 researchers, 3 weeks of supplies, and enough scientific equipment to document whatever they found in those ruins. There was Lena, already consulting her GPS and frowning at the readings. Russo, securing the perimeter with the casual efficiency of a man who had done this in places where the threats shot back. Paul and Vivian, the graduate students, fumbling with their packs and trying not to look overwhelmed. Garrett, the equipment tech, already complaining about the humidity affecting his cameras. And Dr. Harlow, standing apart from the group, his gaze fixed on the tree line, his lips moving in what might have been prayer or might have been anticipation. "All right," Shepard called out, raising his voice to carry over the dying helicopter. "Listen up. We have approximately 6 hours of daylight left. I want camp established by 1600 hours. Garrett, set up the satellite uplink first. We need to confirm our emergency beacon is functioning. Russo, I want a security perimeter established 200 meters out. Lena, you're with me. We're going to do a preliminary survey of the approach to the ruins." "Shouldn't we wait until morning?" Vivian asked. She was 23, eager, with the kind of academic ambition that made her volunteer for remote fieldwork. But her voice trembled now, watching the shadows lengthen beneath those ancient trees. "The ruins are 2 kilometers from this clearing," Shepard said. "I want to know what we're dealing with before we commit our full resources." "What we're dealing with," Lena muttered, just loud enough for him to hear, "is a place my grandmother warned me about. A place the Cree avoid. A place where the veil is thin," she said, "where the hungry dead walk." "Your grandmother was a devout Catholic who also believed in evil eye and corn dollies," Shepard replied, keeping his voice level. "We're scientists, Lena. We document what we find. We don't attribute it to bogeymen. And if we find something that science can't explain, then we document it more carefully." She held his gaze for a long moment, and he saw something there, knowledge, perhaps, or inherited wisdom that his academic credentials couldn't dismiss. Then she shouldered her pack and started toward the tree line without another word. The forest swallowed them within minutes. The transition was abrupt. One moment they were in the clearing with its helicopter-flattened grass and the last warmth of the afternoon sun. The next, they were beneath that ancient canopy, and the temperature dropped 10 degrees. Shepard checked his watch. 14:23. The light that filtered through the branches was green and diffuse, like being underwater. "This is wrong," Lena said, stopping abruptly. "What's wrong?" "The trees." She pointed upward and Shepard followed her gaze. The pines here were massive, their trunks wider than a man's outstretched arms could reach, their bark blackened as if by fire. But there were no branches below 30 feet, just smooth, scarred trunks rising like columns in some eldritch cathedral. Something stripped the lower branches, something tall enough to reach that high. "Wind," Shepard suggested, but even he didn't believe it. The damage was too uniform, too deliberate. The scars on the bark weren't random. They spiraled around the trunks in patterns that almost looked intentional. They walked in silence after that, the only sounds their boots on the needle-strewn ground and the occasional call of birds that sounded wrong somehow, too harsh, too loud, as if warning of intruders. Shepard's GPS showed them making good progress, but the ruins remained elusive. The satellite imagery had placed them at these coordinates, but when they reached the location, they found only more forest. "We're here," Lena said, checking her own device. "This is the exact location." "Then where?" Shepard stopped. He had been looking at his GPS, not at the terrain, and when he raised his head, he saw it. The forest had changed. The trees here were different, not pines at all, but something older, their bark silver-white and peeling like dead skin. They grew in a pattern that was almost geometric, almost architectural, their arrangement too regular to be natural. And between them, barely visible beneath decades of accumulated needles and moss, were the ruins. "My God," Shepard whispered. The structures were unlike anything in the archaeological record. They rose from the forest floor in jagged formations, walls of stone that seemed to have been clawed rather than carved from the mountain itself. The surfaces were smooth in a way that defied explanation. No tool marks, no chisel scars, just seamless stone that reflected the green light in ways that made Shepard's eyes water. "This isn't Cree architecture," Lena said, her voice barely audible. "This isn't anything I've ever seen." Shepard approached the nearest structure, a wall that rose perhaps 15 feet before crumbling into rubble. The stone was warm to the touch, impossibly warm given the chill in the air, and as his fingers brushed the surface, he felt something that made him snatch his hand back. Vibration. The stone was vibrating almost imperceptibly, like the purr of some vast sleeping animal. "Did you feel that?" he asked. But Lena wasn't listening. She had moved deeper into the ruins, toward what appeared to be a central courtyard, and her face had gone pale as milk. "Shane," she called, and her voice cracked. "Shane, you need to see this." He joined her, and for a moment, his scientific mind simply refused to process what he was seeing. The courtyard was circular, perhaps 30 feet across, and its floor was covered in carvings. Not decorative carvings, documentary ones. Images of gaunt figures with elongated limbs and hollow, staring eyes. Figures that crouched over prone bodies, that reached toward the sky with clawed hands, that ran through forests with their mouths open in eternal screams. And in the center of the courtyard, dominating all other images, was a figure carved larger than the rest. It stood upright, impossibly tall, its ribcage visible through stretched skin, its head crowned with what appeared to be antlers, or perhaps branches that had grown from its skull. Its mouth was open in a smile that showed too many teeth, and its eyes were hollow pits that seemed to drink the light. "The Wendigo," Lena whispered. "My grandmother said the carvings were warnings. She said the Cree sealed this place centuries ago, that they bound the hungry one with rituals and prayers." "Legends," Shepard said, but his voice lacked conviction. "These are artistic representations of starvation psychosis. The Wendigo legend originated from real cases of cannibalism in harsh winters, the Algonquian peoples." "This isn't Algonquian," Lena interrupted. "Look at the style, look at the symbols." She pointed to markings carved around the central figure, geometric patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles that almost appeared to move. "These are binding marks, containment sigils. Whoever built this place, they weren't documenting the Wendigo, they were imprisoning it." Shepard opened his mouth to argue, to insist on rational explanations, but the words died in his throat. Because the carvings were moving. Not the stone itself, but something on the stone, shadows that pooled and shifted despite the unchanging light, that seemed to crawl across the surface like living things. And from somewhere deep in the ruins, from some chamber beneath their feet or behind those seamless walls, came a sound. It was breathing, slow, rhythmic, hungry breathing. "We need to go back," Lena said, and she was already moving, already running, her boots slipping on the moss-covered stone. "We need to go back right now, Shane. We need to leave this place and never come back." Shepard didn't argue. He followed, his heart hammering against his ribs, his scientific curiosity overwhelmed by a primal, atavistic terror that spoke in a voice older than reason. They ran through the ruins, through the strange white trees, through the scarred pines, and didn't stop until they burst into the clearing where the others were setting up camp. "What happened?" Russell demanded, his hand going to his sidearm. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse," Lena gasped, bending double to catch her breath. "We've found the ruins, but we can't stay here. We need to leave tonight." "Leave?" Paul laughed, the nervous laugh of a young man trying to mask his fear with bravado. "We just got here. We haven't even started the survey." "You don't understand." Lena straightened, and her face was terrible to see, pale, desperate, her eyes wide with a knowledge she couldn't articulate. The ruins aren't abandoned. Something lives there, something that shouldn't exist. Lena's grandmother told her stories about Wendigos, Shepard said, trying to reclaim his professional composure. The carvings are unsettling. They depict the legend in graphic detail. I think we should proceed with caution, perhaps limit our initial survey to daylight hours only. Caution is wise, Dr. Harlow said. He had appeared from somewhere, his weathered face split in a smile that didn't reach his eyes. But leaving would be a mistake. We've found what we came for, the Wendigo's prison. Don't you see? This is the discovery of a lifetime. It's not a prison, Lena said. It's a tomb, and tombs are meant to stay sealed. Tombs are meant to be opened, Harlow countered, and his voice had taken on a quality that made Shepard's skin crawl, a reverence, an eagerness that seemed almost sexual in its intensity. That's what archaeology is, my dear, the opening of tombs, the resurrection of the dead. The sun was setting behind the mountains, and the valley was filling with shadows that seemed too dark, too substantial, too hungry. Shepard looked at his team, at their eager faces, their professional excitement, their complete ignorance of what waited in those ruins, and he made a decision. We stay, he said, but we establish strict protocols. No one goes to the ruins alone, no one goes after dark, and if anyone sees anything unusual, they report it immediately. Define unusual, Garrett said, grinning. You'll know, Lena whispered, and she was staring at the tree line where the first stars were becoming visible through gaps in the canopy. You'll know when you see it. That night, as the temperature plummeted and the fire crackled in the central pit, Shepard sat apart from the group, reviewing his notes. The ruins were real. The carvings were real. The breathing, he had heard it, he was certain, though his rational mind insisted it must have been wind through hollow stone, or water moving through underground channels, or some other natural phenomenon. But he had also felt the vibration in the stone, and he had seen the shadows move. Penny, for your thoughts. He looked up to find Vivian standing beside him, a mug of coffee in each hand. She offered him one, and he accepted gratefully, letting the warmth seep into his fingers. Just processing, he said. It's a significant find. The architecture alone will rewrite several textbooks. Dr. Harlow says the Wendigo is real, Vivian said, keeping her voice low. He says it's not a legend at all, but a species. Something that evolved alongside humans but went in a different direction. A predator that specializes in hunting us. Dr. Harlow has spent too long in his books, Shepard replied. The Wendigo is a cultural construct, a metaphor for the dangers of isolation and starvation, nothing more. Then why are you afraid? Shepard looked at her sharply. I'm not afraid. Your hands are shaking, Vivian said, and you keep looking at the trees. He forced himself to lower his gaze to focus on the fire, on the circle of light that held back the darkness. It's a new environment, he said. Unknown variables, natural caution. Dr. Shepard, Paul called from across the fire. What's our schedule for tomorrow? Standard survey protocol, Shepard replied, grateful for the distraction. Garrett, I want full photographic documentation of the site. Lena, you'll work with Dr. Harlow on cataloging the cultural significance of the carvings. Paul, Vivian, you'll assist with measurements and sample collection. Russo, you'll maintain security. I want everyone armed with. He stopped. Russo was staring past him, past the fire, into the darkness beyond the camp's perimeter. His hand was on his sidearm, his body tense as a drawn bow. Russo. Something's out there, the security specialist said quietly. Something big. The conversation died. Everyone turned to look where Russo was looking, into the darkness between the trees, where the firelight didn't reach. Probably a bear, Garrett said, but his voice cracked. Bears don't stand on two legs, Russo said. Shepard felt his heart begin to hammer. What did you see? I didn't see anything, Russo's hand hadn't left his weapon, but I felt it, something watching, something tall. Lena stood up, her face pale in the firelight. We need to build up the fire. We need more light. It's just an animal, Dr. Harlow said, but he was smiling, that same strange smile he'd worn since they arrived. The forest is full of creatures, deer, elk, maybe a moose. Moose don't watch, Russo said. This thing is watching, I can feel its eyes. Shepard grabbed his flashlight and stood, moving to the edge of the firelight. He swept the beam across the tree line, illuminating pines and spruce and the occasional glimpse of underbrush. Nothing, just forest, dark and silent and empty. There's nothing there, he said, turning back to the group. Russo, you're letting your imagination. The scream cut him off. It came from the darkness, from somewhere beyond the camp, and it was a sound that no human throat should have been able to produce. It started as a shriek, high and piercing, then dropped into a growl that vibrated in Shepard's chest, then rose again into something that might have been laughter, wet, eager, hungry laughter. Inside the tents, Russo commanded, drawing his weapon. Now. They moved as a group, huddling together in the center of the camp, their backs to the fire, their eyes fixed on the darkness. The scream came again, closer this time, and with it a sound like branches breaking, like something heavy moving through the underbrush with impossible speed. It's circling us, Lena whispered. It's testing our fear. Shut up, Garrett snapped. Just shut up with that superstitious. The thermal camera in Russo's hand beeped. He looked down at the screen, and Shepard saw his face go white. What is it? Shepard demanded. What do you see? Russo turned the screen toward him. The thermal image showed the camp in shades of blue and green, the cold ground, the cooler tents, the warm bodies of the researchers clustered together. And at the edge of the image, standing motionless between two trees, was a figure. It was tall, impossibly tall. The thermal signature showed it as a deep red, hotter than the fire, hotter than any living thing should be. Its limbs were elongated, distorted, and its head was crowned with branching protrusions that might have been antlers or might have been horns. My God, Shepard breathed. He looked up from the screen, looked toward the spot where the figure stood in the thermal image and saw nothing. Just darkness, just trees. But when he looked back at the screen, the figure had moved. It was closer now, halfway between the tree line and the camp, and its arms were raised, its two long fingers spread wide. It's coming, Russo said, and his voice was steady despite the terror in his eyes. Everyone behind me, now. Shepard didn't argue. He pulled Vivian and Paul back away from the fire toward the tents. Lena was already moving, her hand clutching something at her neck. A pendant, Shepard realized, some kind of protective charm. Dr. Harlow stood his ground, his face illuminated by the fire, his expression one of rapturous anticipation. It's beautiful, the old man whispered. Can't you see it's beautiful? Harlow, get back, Shepard shouted. The creature stepped into the firelight. Shepard would later try to describe it to himself, try to force his scientific mind to catalog its features, but the memory would never cohere into something rational. It was tall, 8 feet, 9 maybe taller. Its body was emaciated, skin stretched tight over visible bone, ribs like xylophone bars, joints swollen and wrong. Its arms hung to its knees, ending in hands with too many fingers, each finger tipped with a black claw that caught the firelight. Its face, God, its face. The skull was elongated, the jaw distended, the mouth open in that smile that showed teeth like broken glass. And its eyes, hollow pits of darkness that somehow reflected the fire, that seemed to burn with their own cold light. It stood at the edge of the firelight, and it watched them with an intelligence that was ancient and patient and utterly inhuman. Don't move, Russo whispered. Nobody move. The creature tilted its head, a gesture that was almost bird-like, almost curious. Then it opened its mouth wider, wider than any mouth should open, and made a sound. It was Shepard's name. Shalayan. The voice was a chorus of whispers, of wind through dry leaves, of ice cracking on a frozen lake. It was his mother's voice, and his father's and his own, all speaking together in a harmony that made his teeth ache. "Shall Ann come see?" "No," Shepard whispered. "No, no, no." The creature took a step forward, and Russell fired. The shot was deafening in the quiet night, a crack of thunder that sent birds exploding from the trees. The creature didn't flinch. The bullet struck its chest. Shepard saw the impact, saw the skin pucker and tear, and the creature looked down at the wound with what might have been amusement. Then it moved. It was faster than anything that size should be, a blur of gray flesh and white bone that crossed the distance between them in a heartbeat. Russell fired again and again, the muzzle flash illuminating the creature's face in strobing snapshots of nightmare. The bullets hit home. Shepard saw them strike, saw the dark blood spray, but the creature didn't slow. Its hand closed around Russell's throat, and the security specialist's scream was cut off with a wet gurgle. The creature lifted him effortlessly, held him dangling in the air, and turned to look at Shepard with those hollow, burning eyes. "Not this one," it whispered, and its breath was the smell of old meat and frozen earth. "This one is tough, stringy." It threw Russell into the fire. The security specialist's scream was terrible, inhuman, the sound of a man burning alive. The creature watched for a moment, its head tilted in that bird-like gesture, then turned and walked back into the darkness. It moved slowly, almost casually, as if it had all the time in the world. As if it knew they couldn't escape. Shepard ran to Russell, pulling him from the flames, beating at the fire on his clothes. The smell was horrific, burning hair, burning flesh, but Russell was alive, gasping, his throat a mass of bruises and claw marks. "What was that?" Paul screamed. "What the fuck was that?" "The Wendigo," Lena said, and she was crying now, tears streaming down her face. I told you we shouldn't have come." "We need to leave," Vivian said, her voice high and thin. "We need to leave right now." "The helicopter isn't coming until Thursday," Garrett said. 3 days. We're stuck here for 3 days." "Then we run," Shepard said. He was dragging Russell toward the medical tent, his mind racing, his scientific training finally overwhelmed by survival instinct. "We pack what we can carry and we run. We follow the river down, we get to the logging road, It won't let us leave," Lena said. "Don't you understand? It knows we're here now. It tasted our fear, it won't let us go." "We have to try," Shepard said. "We can't stay here, we can't." The scream came again from the darkness, and this time it was answered by another sound. A wet, tearing sound. A sound like meat being ripped from bone. "Oh God," Vivian whispered. Oh God, it's eating something." "It's eating Russell's fear," Dr. Harlow said. He hadn't moved from his spot by the fire and his face was still lit with that terrible joy. "That's what they do. They feed on fear, on despair, on the moment when hope dies." "Shut up," Shepard snarled. "Shut up with your goddamn legends and help me save this man's life." But even as he worked, even as he bandaged Russell's burns and treated his wounds, Shepard knew that Lena was right. They couldn't run. The creature was out there in the darkness waiting. It had shown itself to them, had spoken his name, had tasted their terror. The hunt had begun. And they were the prey. The night passed in fragments of terror and exhaustion. Shepard organized watches, 2 hours on, 4 hours off, but no one slept. They sat in the medical tent with Russell, who drifted in and out of consciousness, his burns weeping clear fluid, his throat swollen from the creature's grip. Every sound from the forest made them flinch. The hoot of an owl, the rustle of wind through branches, the distant crack of something heavy moving through the underbrush. The creature didn't attack again, but it didn't leave. Shepard could feel it out there beyond the firelight, watching and waiting. Occasionally, he would catch a glimpse of movement at the edge of vision, a tall shape between the trees, a flash of white that might have been bone or might have been birch bark. When he turned to look directly, there would be nothing. But when he looked away, he would feel eyes on him again, hungry and patient and ancient. "It's playing with us," Lena said. She sat beside him during the 3 a.m. watch, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. "That's what the stories say. The Wendigo doesn't just kill. It hunts. It toys with its prey. It draws out the fear like a vintner drawing wine from a cask." "It's an animal," Shepard said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. "A predator. Predators don't play with their food." "This one does." Lena turned to look at him, and her eyes were red-rimmed, desperate. "Shane, I've been reading Dr. Harlow's notes. The Wendigo isn't just a monster. It's a transformation. The stories say that anyone who eats human flesh in these mountains becomes a Wendigo. The hunger consumes them from the inside out, until they're nothing but appetite and teeth and endless winter." "Cannibalism psychosis," Shepard said. "I know the literature. Isolated groups in harsh conditions, forced to choose between starvation and that. The survivors often develop delusions, hallucinations. They believe they're possessed by spirits." "What if they're right?" "Lena, what if the Wendigo is real? Not a metaphor, not a psychological condition, but an actual entity. Something that feeds on human fear and suffering. Something that can only enter our world when we invite it in with our terror." Shepard didn't answer. He was watching the tree line, where the first gray light of dawn was beginning to filter through the branches. The creature had retreated with the light, or perhaps it had never been there at all. Perhaps it had been a shared hallucination born of exhaustion and fear. But Russo's burns were real. The claw marks on his throat were real. And somewhere in the ruins, something was waiting for night to fall again. At dawn, Shepard made his decision. They would document the site quickly, efficiently, professionally, and then they would leave. The helicopter wasn't due for 2 more days, but they could hike out. The logging road was 20 miles south, following the river valley. Difficult terrain, but not impossible. Not for people who were motivated by survival. "We're splitting into teams," he announced at the morning briefing. The team had gathered around the fire pit, huddled in their jackets against the morning chill. Russo was still in the medical tent, sedated and stable but unable to travel. "Garrett, you're with me. We're going back to the ruins for a final survey. I want photographs, measurements, samples, 2 hours maximum. Lena, you're in charge of camp. Start packing. We leave at noon." "Leave?" Paul looked up from his notebook, his face pale. "We're leaving, but we haven't even started the real excavation. The university can send another team," Shepard interrupted. "A better equipped team. A team with military escort and heavy weapons." "You mean a team that knows what they're dealing with," Dr. Harlow said. The old man smiled his strange smile. "But they won't believe you, will they, Dr. Shepard? When you tell them what you saw, when you tell them about the Wendigo, they'll think you've lost your mind. They'll commit you. Or worse, they'll send another team unprepared and the Wendigo will feast again." "We're leaving," Shepard repeated. "Anyone who wants to stay can stay, but I'm taking the students out, today." The hike to the ruins took longer than Shepard remembered. The path seemed different. The landmarks he had noted yesterday were gone or changed. Trees fallen where none had been, streams diverted from their courses. Twice, Garrett checked his GPS and frowned. "This doesn't make sense," the tech said. "According to this, we should be standing in the middle of the ruins, but there's nothing here." "Keep walking," Shepard said, but his voice lacked conviction. They found the ruins 10 minutes later in a location that didn't match their coordinates. The structures were the same. Those seamless walls of warm stone, that circular courtyard with its terrible carvings, but they were different too. The walls seemed taller, the carvings deeper, the shadows in the corners darker and more substantial. And the central figure, the Wendigo carved in stone, had changed. "That's not possible," Shepard whispered. Yesterday the figure had been frozen in its eternal smile, its hollow eyes staring at nothing. Today it was turned. Its head had rotated on its stone neck, and its eyes, those pits of darkness, were looking directly at the spot where Shepard stood. "Dr. Shepard," Garrett's voice trembled, "did you see that? The statue moved." "Stone doesn't move," Shepard said automatically, but he was backing away, his camera forgotten in his hands. "It's a trick of the light, the angle of the sun." But the sun was behind them, and the statue's face was clearly illuminated, and its mouth was open wider than it had been yesterday, and its teeth, carved from the same stone as the rest, seemed to glisten with moisture. "We need to go," Garrett said. "We need to go right now." "The samples." "Fuck the samples." They ran. They ran through the ruins, through the white trees, through the scarred pines, and didn't stop until they burst into the clearing where the others were waiting. But the clearing had changed too. The tents were different, arranged in a pattern that seemed almost deliberate, almost ritualistic. The fire pit had been dug deeper, the ashes scattered in a spiral pattern. And in the center of the camp, where yesterday there had been only grass, there was now a pile of stones. "Who did this?" Shepard demanded. "Who moved the tents? Who built this cairn?" No one answered. The team stood in a circle around the stone pile, their faces pale, their eyes wide with a fear that Shepard recognized. He had seen it in his own reflection this morning, in the mirror of his tent. "It wasn't us," Lena said quietly. "We heard it during the night, something moving around the camp, something heavy. We thought it was you coming back early, but when we looked there was nothing there." "And this morning," Paul continued, his voice barely audible, "the tents were like this. The stones were here, and there was something on top of the cairn." Shepard approached the pile. It was built with precision, flat stones stacked in interlocking layers, rising to a height of about 3 feet. And on top, placed with obvious care, was a collection of objects. A watch, a wedding ring, a child's hair ribbon. "These are from the cabin," Garrett whispered. "From the basement. I saw them yesterday." "What cabin?" Shepard demanded. "What basement?" "The hunter's cabin, 2 miles east of here. I found it yesterday while I was scouting for satellite uplink positions. It was old, abandoned, but there was a trapdoor in the floor, and under it," Garrett swallowed hard, "there were things, belongings, trophies maybe, like something had been collecting them." "Why didn't you report this?" "I did. I told Dr. Harlow. He said it was probably just a cache, something left by previous expeditions. He told me not to worry about it." Shepard turned to look at Harlow, but the old man was gone. While the others had been focused on the cairn, he had slipped away, vanished into the trees as silently as smoke. "Where is he?" Shepard demanded. "Where did Harlow go?" "He said he was going to pray," Vivian said. "He said he needed to commune with the spirit of the place. He said the Wendigo was calling him." The words hung in the air like smoke. Shepard felt the temperature drop, felt his breath begin to frost in the morning air. August. It was August, and his breath was frosting. "We need to find him," Shepard said. "We need to find him and get out of here. Now." They searched for an hour, calling Harlow's name, following his tracks through the underbrush. The tracks led toward the ruins, then circled back, then led in a spiral pattern that made no sense, that seemed almost designed to confuse and disorient. Finally, they found him in a small clearing, kneeling before a tree, his hands clasped in prayer. But the prayer wasn't Christian. Shepard recognized some of the words from Lena's research, Cree, Algonquian, the language of the people who had built the ruins, who had imprisoned the Wendigo in stone and prayer. "Harlow," Shepard said carefully, "we need to go." The old man didn't turn. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" he said, his voice dreamy, distant. "The hunger, the purity of it. No morality, no guilt, no shame, just appetite, just need." "Harlow." "I felt it last night when it took Russo, the power of it, the freedom." Harlow turned, and his face was terrible to see, his eyes wide and bright, his mouth stretched in a smile that showed too many teeth. "It offered me a choice, Dr. Shepard. It offered me transformation. I could be like it. I could hunt forever, never hungry, never satisfied, always feeding." You need to come back to camp. You're having a breakdown. I'm having a breakthrough, Harlow laughed, and the sound was wrong, too high, too sharp, like breaking glass. Don't you see? The Wendigo isn't a monster, it's evolution. The next step. A being that has transcended the limitations of flesh, that feeds on the purest energy of all, the terror of the hunted, the despair of the doomed. Lena stepped forward, her hand raised in a gesture that might have been warding or might have been benediction. Dr. Harlow, she said softly, the Wendigo is a spirit of corruption. It promises power, but it delivers only hunger. If you accept its offer, you'll lose yourself. You'll become nothing but appetite and teeth. Perhaps, Harlow said, but I would be eternal, I would be free. He stood, and Shepard saw that his hands were bleeding, deep cuts in the palms, self-inflicted, the blood dripping onto the forest floor in a pattern that matched the spiral of the cairn. I'm going to the ruins, Harlow announced. I'm going to complete the ritual. I'm going to open the prison and set the Wendigo free. The prison is already open, Lena said. That's why it's hunting us. That's why it can touch our world. Then I'll open it wider. I'll tear down the walls between worlds and let the hunger consume everything. Harlow's smile widened, and Shepard saw that his teeth were longer than they should be, his jaw distending slightly, his eyes sinking into hollow pits of shadow. Join me, Dr. Shepard. Join me and we'll hunt together. We'll feed forever. Get away from him, Shepard commanded, but his voice cracked. Everyone back to camp now. They retreated, leaving Harlow in his clearing, leaving him to his prayers and his blood and his growing madness. Shepard wanted to believe that the old man would come to his senses, that he would return to camp and they could sedate him and carry him out of these mountains. But deep down, in the part of his mind that had been screaming since last night, he knew that Harlow was already lost. The Wendigo had tasted his weakness, his obsession, his willingness to believe. And now it was feeding on him, transforming him, making him into something that wore Harlow's face but was hollow inside. Back at camp, Shepard enforced order with desperate energy. They would leave in 1 hour. They would take only what they could carry. They would follow the river south, moving fast, not stopping until they reached the logging road. What about Russo? Vivian asked. He can't walk, he can barely breathe. We'll make a stretcher, 2 poles and a tarp, we carry him. And Dr. Harlow? Harlow made his choice. The words were harsh, cruel even, but Shepard didn't take them back. He couldn't afford to. He had 6 people to save, 7, counting himself, and he couldn't let sentimentality doom them all. They packed in silence, working quickly, their eyes constantly darting to the tree line. The sun was high now, the day warm and bright, but the shadows beneath the trees seemed darker than they should be, more substantial. Shepard kept his sidearm close, not that bullets had helped Russo, not that anything seemed to help against the creature, but the weight of it was comforting, a reminder of the rational world he had left behind. It was Paul who found the footprint. Dr. Shepard, the student called, his voice strange, controlled. You need to see this. The footprint was in the mud near the stream, preserved perfectly by the chill in the air. It was humanoid, 5 toes, an arch, a heel, but wrong in every particular. The toes were too long, tipped with claw marks that had frozen into the mud. The arch was too high, the heel too narrow. And the size, the footprint was 18 inches long, maybe more. It's fresh, Paul said. The mud hasn't dried. This was made this morning. While we were searching for Harlow, Lena whispered. It was here in our camp, while we were gone. Or while we were here, Garrett said, watching us, learning our patterns. We leave now, Shepard said. Everyone grab your pack, we're moving. They assembled at the edge of camp, 7 people huddled together, their faces grim. Russo was strapped to a makeshift stretcher, unconscious but breathing. The others carried what they could, water, food, first aid, the satellite phone that might get them help if they could reach higher ground. Which way? Vivian asked. South, Shepard said. Follow the stream. It leads to the river leads to the road. The ruins are south, Lena said quietly. We'll go around them. Wide circle, stay in the open, avoid the trees. It can move through the trees, Lena said. It can move anywhere. Then we run faster than it can move. They started south, moving at a fast walk that was just short of a jog. Shepard took point, his flashlight in one hand, his gun in the other. Behind him came Garrett and Paul carrying the stretcher. Then Lena and Vivian, their eyes fixed on the forest around them. Bringing up the rear was the empty space where Russell should have been walking, where Harlow should have been watching. The forest closed in around them, the trees growing denser, the underbrush thicker. The stream led them through terrain that grew progressively more difficult, steep banks, fallen logs, thickets of thorn that tore at their clothes. Shepard pushed the pace, ignoring the complaints, ignoring the burning in his lungs and the stitch in his side. They had been walking for an hour when Vivian asked to stop. "I need to pee," she said, her face flushed with embarrassment. "I can't hold it anymore." 2 minutes, Shepard said, "no more." Vivian stepped behind a tree just out of sight. The others waited, catching their breath, listening to the sounds of the forest. Birdsong, wind, the stream bubbling over rocks. Then silence. "Vivian," Paul called, "you okay?" No answer. "Vivian." Shepard was moving before he knew it, running toward the tree where she had disappeared. He found her shoe first, a hiking boot, laces still tied, lying on its side as if she had stepped right out of it. Then he found the drag marks, furrows in the mud, leading away from the stream toward a thicket of deadfall. "Vivian," he shouted. Here, her voice came from ahead, from somewhere in the thicket, and it was wrong, too high, too thin, stretched like a recording played at the wrong speed. "I'm here, help me." Shepard plunged into the thicket, branches tearing at his face and hands. The drag marks continued, deeper now, more desperate, as if something had been pulling her with tremendous force. He followed them through the deadfall, through a tangle of branches that seemed almost deliberately arranged to impede him, until he emerged into a small clearing. In the center of the clearing was a shack. It was old, ancient even, built from logs that had grayed with age and weather. The roof had collapsed in one corner and the door hung open, revealing darkness within. And from that darkness came a sound, wet, rhythmic, like chewing. "Vivian," Shepard whispered. The chewing stopped. For a long moment there was silence. Then, from the darkness of the shack came a chuckle. It was Vivian's laugh, but it wasn't Vivian. The pitch was wrong, the cadence inhuman. It was a perfect imitation, a mockery, a predator playing with its food. "Come in, Shane," the voice said, and it was Vivian's voice, but it was also the Wendigo's voice, the wind voice, the ice voice. "Come in and see." Shepard should have run. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to get back to the others, to flee this place and never look back. But he was frozen, rooted to the spot by a mixture of horror and terrible, morbid curiosity. He stepped toward the shack. The darkness inside was absolute, a blackness that seemed to drink the light from his flashlight. But as his eyes adjusted, he began to make out shapes. A table, a chair, something hanging from the ceiling that might have been meat or might have been. "Vivian," he whispered again. "Here," the voice said, and it came from below now, from beneath the floorboards. "I'm down here, in the cellar. Come and get me." Shepard saw the trapdoor then, a square of darker darkness in the corner of the shack, slightly ajar. From the gap came a draft of air that smelled of rot and old blood and something else, something sweet and corrupt like overripe fruit. He approached the trapdoor. His hand reached for it. His fingers touched the wood, felt the vibration beneath it, the same vibration he had felt in the ruins, the purr of something vast and hungry and waiting. "Come down," the voice whispered. "Come down and join us, we're so hungry." Shepard pulled his hand back. He took a step away from the trapdoor, then another. The chuckle came again, louder now, and with it a sound of movement, something heavy shifting in the darkness below, something with too many limbs and too many teeth. He ran. He ran from the shack through the thicket back to the stream where the others were waiting. They saw his face, saw the terror in his eyes, and they didn't ask questions. They just ran with him, following the stream south, away from the shack, away from the ruins, away from the thing that wore Vivian's voice like a mask. They ran until they couldn't run anymore, until their lungs burned and their legs trembled and their minds screamed for rest. They stopped in a small clearing, collapsing against trees, gasping for breath. "Where's Vivian?" Paul asked between breaths. "Where did she go?" "Gone," Shepard said. "Taken." "Taken where?" "To the cellar, to the dark." Shepard closed his eyes, trying to block out the memory of that trapdoor, that voice, that terrible invitation. "It's playing with us. It took her to make us afraid. It wants us to know that it can reach us anywhere, anytime." "Then we don't stop," Lena said. She was on her feet, her face set with a determination that bordered on desperation. "We don't rest. We keep moving until we reach the road." "Russell can't take it," Garrett said. "He's dying. We need to stop, need to treat him." "If we stop, we die," Lena interrupted. "All of us. The Wendigo doesn't get tired. It doesn't need rest. It will hunt us until we're all in that cellar, all in the dark, all." She stopped. Her head turned, her eyes fixed on something in the trees. "What?" Shepard demanded. "What do you see?" "Nothing," Lena whispered. "I see nothing, and that's what scares me." The forest had gone silent. The birds had stopped singing. The wind had died. Even the stream seemed quieter, as if the water itself was afraid to make noise. Then the screaming started. It came from behind them, from the direction of the camp, and it was Paul who screamed, Paul's voice raised in absolute, transcendent terror. The scream rose and rose, climbing the register until it became something inhuman, something that no human throat could produce. Then it stopped. And in the silence that followed, they heard the wet sound of meat being torn, of bones being cracked, of something feeding with desperate, eager hunger. "Run," Shepard whispered. "Run and don't look back." They ran. But the Wendigo was already among them. They ran without direction, without purpose, driven only by the animal instinct to flee. Shepard's mind had narrowed to a single point of focus: survive. The academic, the scientist, the rational man who had led this expedition with such confidence, all of that was gone, burned away by terror until only the prey remained. Behind them, the sounds of feeding continued. Wet, rhythmic, punctuated by the occasional crack of bone. Shepard didn't look back. He couldn't. To look back would be to see what the Wendigo had done to Paul, and seeing would break him. "This way," Lena shouted, veering left toward a stand of birch trees. "The river. We need to reach the river." They followed her, their boots slipping on moss and dead leaves, their breath coming in ragged gasps. Garrett stumbled, nearly dropping his corner of the stretcher, and Shepard grabbed him, hauling him upright. "Don't stop," Shepard gasped. "Don't you dare stop." "I can't," Garrett sobbed. I can't, it's going to kill us all." "It will if you stop, move." They burst through the birch stand and found the river, not the gentle stream they had been following, but the main channel, wide and fast and treacherous. The far bank was 30 feet away, the water black and cold and filled with hidden rocks. "We can't cross," Lena said. "Not with Russo, not like this." "We have to," Shepard said. "It's our only chance." "Our only chance is to hide." Garrett's voice was high, hysterical. "We need to hide, need to find somewhere it can't reach us." "There's nowhere it can't reach." Lena grabbed Garrett by the shoulders, shaking him. "Don't you understand? It knows this forest. It is this forest. The only way out is through." "Then we go through," Shepard said. He was already wading into the water, his teeth chattering from the cold. "Garrett, help me with the stretcher. Lena, take point. Watch for rocks." They entered the river together, the icy water climbing to their waists, then their chests. Russo moaned on the stretcher, his burns weeping into the current. his face pale as death. Shepard focused on keeping the stretcher level, on placing his feet carefully on the slippery stones beneath the surface. Halfway across, they heard the scream. It wasn't Paul's voice this time. Paul was already dead, his body cooling somewhere in the forest behind them. This was a new scream, Garrett's scream, high and piercing and abruptly cut off. Shepard turned. He shouldn't have, but he did. Garrett was gone. The stretcher tilted, unbalanced, and Shepard grabbed for it, his fingers closing on the pole as the current tried to tear it away. But Garrett was standing on the near bank, or rather, something was wearing Garrett's shape, something that smiled with too many teeth and had eyes like holes in the world. "Garrett," Shepard whispered. The thing laughed. It was Garrett's laugh, but stretched, distorted, played through an instrument of bone and hunger. Then it moved fast, impossibly fast, and was gone, vanished into the trees with a sound like wind through dry leaves. "It took him," Lena said. Her voice was flat, dead. "It took him and left his shell." "We have to keep moving," Shepard said. His voice sounded strange in his own ears, distant and calm. "We have to." The scream came again, from upstream this time, and it was Garrett's voice, but it was screaming words. "Help me! Oh God, help me! It's eating me! It's eating me from the inside out!" "Don't listen," Lena said. "It's not him, it's the Wendigo. It wears their voices like clothes." They struggled to the far bank, dragging the stretcher with Russo's unconscious body. As they collapsed on the shore, Shepard looked back at the river and saw something that made his blood freeze, a shape standing in the water watching them. It was tall, emaciated, crowned with antlers that scraped the sky, and as Shepard watched, it raised one long-fingered hand and waved. "It's letting us go," Lena whispered. "For now. It wants us to run, it wants the hunt to last." "Then we disappoint it," Shepard said. "We find the road, we get to civilization, we call for help." "There is no help," Lena said. "Not for this, not for the Wendigo." They moved south along the riverbank, staying in the open, keeping their eyes on the tree line. The sun was beginning to set, the light turning golden and then orange and then red. Shadows stretched across the ground, reaching for them like fingers. "We need to find shelter," Shepard said. "Somewhere defensible." "There's a ranger station," Lena said. 5 miles south. I saw it on the map." 5 miles, we can make it." But even as he said it, Shepard knew they wouldn't. The Wendigo was playing with them, letting them think they had a chance, letting hope bloom before it crushed it. That was its nature, not just to feed on flesh, but to feed on despair. They walked until full dark, until the stars emerged and the moon rose silver and cold. The river gurgled beside them, a constant companion, and Shepard found himself listening to it for any sound that didn't belong, any splash that might be a footstep, any ripple that might be a hand reaching from the water. "We should rest," Lena said, "just for a few minutes. Russo needs water." They stopped in a clearing, the moonlight casting everything in shades of gray. Lena knelt beside the stretcher, holding a canteen to Russo's lips. The security specialist's eyes fluttered open, and he looked at her with a clarity that hadn't been there before. "It's behind me, isn't it?" Russo whispered. Lena's hand froze. "What?" "The Wendigo, it's behind me. I can feel its breath." Russo tried to sit up, failed, collapsed back onto the stretcher. "You need to run, both of you. Leave me here." "We're not leaving you," Shepard said. "You have to. I'm dead anyway. Burns are too bad, throat's crushed. I'm just slowing you down." Russo's hand found Shepard's wrist, gripped with surprising strength. "But there's something you need to know, something I saw in the thermal image." "What?" "It's not alone. There are others in the ruins, in the deep places." Russo's eyes were wide, seeing something beyond the clearing, beyond the world. "The Wendigo isn't a creature, it's a state, a condition, and it's spreading. The more it feeds, the more there are." "That's impossible," Shepard said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Harlow," Russo whispered. "Harlow is changing. I can smell it on him, the hunger, the cold. He's becoming one of them. Dr. Harlow is lost, Lena said gently. We can't help him. No one can help him now, but you can still get out. You can still. Russo's voice trailed off. His eyes fixed on something above Shepard's head and his face went pale. Oh God, it's here. Shepard spun around, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The clearing was empty. Just trees, just shadows, just the silver light of the moon. There's nothing there, he said. Russo, there's nothing. The branch snapped. It was a sound like a gunshot, sharp and sudden, and it came from directly above them. Shepard looked up, and his flashlight illuminated something that his mind refused to process. A shape in the trees, clinging to the trunk 30 feet up, its limbs wrapped around the branches like a spider's legs. It was the Wendigo, but different now, changed. Its skin was looser, hanging in strips from its bones, and beneath the skin something moved. Something that writhed and squirmed like worms in meat. Run, Russo whispered. For God's sake, run. The Wendigo dropped. It fell like a stone, like a dead thing, and landed in the center of the clearing with an impact that shook the ground. Shepard stumbled back, his flashlight falling from nerveless fingers. In the moonlight, the creature was even more terrible, its face a mask of hunger, its mouth open in that eternal smile, its eyes hollow pits that drank the light. Sha'ain, it whispered, and its voice was the wind through winter trees, the crack of ice on a frozen lake. I've been waiting for you. Get back, Lena screamed. She had grabbed a branch from the ground, was holding it like a weapon. Stay back. The Wendigo turned to look at her and its smile widened. Little crow, it said, little bird with broken wings, your grandmother warned you. She told you not to come. How do you know that? Lena's voice trembled. I know everything. The creature took a step toward her and the temperature dropped 10 degrees. I know your fears, your regrets, the man you left behind in Vancouver, the child you never had. I know the hunger that eats you from inside, the hunger for meaning, for purpose, for something more than this empty life. Shut up. I can give you meaning, I can give you purpose, I can make you eternal. The Wendigo extended one long-fingered hand. Join me, little crow, join the hunt. Never. The Wendigo's smile didn't falter. Then you die. It moved faster than thought, a blur of gray flesh and white bone. Lena swung the branch, connected with a sound like hitting a tree trunk, but the creature didn't slow. Its hand closed around her throat, lifted her into the air, held her dangling like a doll. Lena, Shepard screamed. He grabbed his fallen flashlight, swung it like a club. The impact jarred his arm, sent pain shooting to his shoulder, but the Wendigo didn't even flinch. It held Lena with one hand and turned to look at Shepard with those hollow, burning eyes. You want her, it asked, then come and take her. It threw her. Lena flew through the air, a limp shape in the moonlight, and struck a tree trunk with a sound like a wet sack hitting concrete. She fell to the ground and didn't move. Lena, Shepard ran to her, fell to his knees beside her. Her neck was bent at an impossible angle, her eyes open and staring at nothing. Blood trickled from her mouth, black in the moonlight. No, he whispered. No, no, no. She's gone, the Wendigo said. It stood over him, its shadow covering him like a shroud. They all go in the end. The only question is how, quick and clean or slow and screaming. Shepard looked up at the creature, at the nightmare that wore the shape of hunger. What are you? He asked, and his voice was broken, defeated. What are you really? I am the winter that never ends, the Wendigo said. I am the hunger that consumes all things. I am the dark at the end of the world, the cold that waits for every fire to die. It crouched down, bringing its face close to Shepard's, and its breath was the smell of frozen graves. And soon, Dr. Shepard, I will be you. Never. You think you're strong. You think your science, your reason, your precious rationality will save you. The Wendigo laughed, and the sound was like breaking glass. I was a man once. A doctor like you, a man of science, of reason. I came to these mountains to study the native legends, to debunk the superstitions. And I found the truth. The truth is that the world is older and stranger than your science can explain. The truth is that there are hungers that predate humanity, that will outlast it. The truth is that you are meat, Dr. Shepherd, meat and fear, and I feed on both. Then feed, Shepherd snarled. Get it over with. Oh no, the Wendigo stood, stretching to its full height. Not yet, you're not ripe yet. I want you to see the rest of your team die first. I want you to carry their screams with you into the dark. It turned toward Russo, still lying on the stretcher. The security specialist's eyes were open, watching, and there was no fear in them anymore. Only resignation. Do it, Russo whispered. Just make it quick. Quick, the Wendigo tilted its head, but quick is no fun. It reached down with both hands, and before Shepherd could look away, before he could close his eyes, it lifted Russo from the stretcher and began to pull. The screaming lasted for a very long time. When it was over, when the wet sounds finally stopped, Shepherd was still kneeling beside Lena's body. The Wendigo stood over him, its chest heaving, its mouth dripping with things Shepherd refused to identify. Now you, it said, now we finish this. But before it could move, before it could reach for him, a sound cut through the night. A voice, human and cracked with madness, singing in a language Shepherd didn't recognize. Harlow, the Wendigo whispered, and for the first time Shepherd heard something like uncertainty in its voice. The old one is changing, he's becoming. From the trees Dr. Harlow emerged. But he was different now, his skin gray and loose, his eyes sunken into hollow pits, his mouth stretched in a smile that showed teeth too long and too sharp. He walked with a strange, jerky gait, as if his limbs weren't quite under his control. Master, Harlow said, and his voice was a chorus of whispers, I have come to serve. You're not ready, the Wendigo said. The change isn't complete. But I'm hungry, Harlow said. So hungry. I can feel it eating me from inside, the emptiness, the need. I need to feed, Master, I need to hunt. Then hunt. The Wendigo gestured toward Shepherd. This one is mine, but there are others in the forest, in the dark, find them, feed. Harlow turned his head and Shepherd saw that his neck had elongated, that his jaw had begun to distend. Others? He asked. More prey. More prey, the Wendigo confirmed. Go, I'll join you when I'm finished here. Harlow, or the thing that had been Harlow, loped off into the darkness, moving with that terrible, jerky speed. The Wendigo watched him go, and Shepherd saw something on its face that might have been satisfaction. You see, the creature said, turning back to Shepherd, the hunger spreads, the winter grows. Soon this whole forest will be mine, and then the valley, and then the mountains, and then... It smiled, showing teeth that glistened in the moonlight. And then the world. You're insane, Shepherd whispered. I'm hungry, the Wendigo corrected. There's a difference. It reached for him and Shepherd closed his eyes, waiting for the end. But the blow didn't come. Instead, he heard a sound, a wet, tearing sound, and opened his eyes to see the Wendigo looking down at its chest in surprise. A branch protruded from its sternum. A thick branch, sharpened to a point, driven through the creature's back and out its front. What? The Wendigo whispered. Wood, a voice said from behind it. Through the heart, that's how you kill a Wendigo. Dr. Harlow stood there, or rather, the thing that was becoming Dr. Harlow. But his eyes were clear now, focused, and in them Shepherd saw not hunger but rage. You thought you could make me your slave, Harlow said. You thought you could consume me. But I studied you, creature, I learned your weaknesses, and I chose this. He twisted the branch and the Wendigo screamed. It was a terrible sound, inhuman, like the death cry of something that should never have lived. The creature thrashed, its limbs flailing, its mouth opening and closing in silent agony. Fire, Harlow gasped. It needs fire, the heart needs to burn. He pulled a lighter from his pocket, a cheap plastic lighter, the kind sold in gas stations, and flicked it open. The flame was small, orange, barely visible in the moonlight. "No," the Wendigo whispered. "Please, I can give you power, immortality, I can." "You can burn," Harlow said. He touched the flame to his own clothes. The alcohol he had doused himself with, Shepard saw it now, smelled it, caught immediately, engulfing Harlow in a ball of flame. The old man didn't scream. He just smiled, that terrible smile, and wrapped his burning arms around the Wendigo. "Run, Dr. Shepard," Harlow said, his voice calm despite the flames consuming him. "Run and don't look back." Shepard ran. Behind him, the Wendigo screamed. The sound was like nothing he had ever heard, like the death of winter itself, like the end of hunger. It went on and on, rising and falling, accompanied by the crackle of flames and the smell of burning meat. Shepard didn't look back. He ran through the forest, his lungs burning, his legs trembling, his mind blank with terror. He ran until he couldn't run anymore, until he collapsed against a tree, gasping, sobbing. The fire was visible behind him, a pillar of flame rising into the night sky. It illuminated the forest for hundreds of yards, casting dancing shadows that seemed to reach for him with hungry fingers. And in the light of that fire, Shepard saw something that made his blood freeze. Shapes in the trees. Tall, emaciated shapes watching the flames with hollow eyes. Dozens of them, maybe more. The Wendigo wasn't alone. It had never been alone. Shepard pushed himself up and ran again, deeper into the forest, away from the fire, away from the creatures. He ran until his legs gave out, until he fell to his knees in a stream, the cold water shocking him back to awareness. He was alone, alive, the only survivor. The realization hit him like a physical blow, and he bent double, vomiting into the stream. Paul, Vivian, Garrett, Lena, Russo, Harlow, all dead, all consumed by the hunger that lived in these mountains. And he was alive. By some miracle, by Harlow's sacrifice, he was alive. He didn't know how long he sat there, kneeling in the water, his mind blank. The fire had died down behind him, leaving only the smell of smoke and the distant sound of something moving through the trees. The Wendigos, he couldn't think of them as anything else now, were hunting. They would find him eventually. Unless he moved. Shepard forced himself to stand. His clothes were soaked, his body bruised, his mind shattered. But he was alive, and that meant he had a chance. The logging road. He had to find the logging road. He walked south, following the stream, his flashlight long gone, his only guide the stars and the occasional glimpse of the moon through the canopy. The forest was alive with sounds, rustling, cracking, the occasional call of some night bird, and every sound made him flinch, made him expect to see those hollow eyes in the darkness. But the Wendigos didn't come. Perhaps they were busy with Harlow's remains. Perhaps they were celebrating their new brother. Perhaps they simply weren't interested in one more victim when they had already fed so well. Dawn found him at the edge of a clear cut, the stumps of trees stretching like grave markers toward the horizon. Beyond the clear cut he could see it, a dirt road, rutted and overgrown but unmistakable. The logging road. Shepard stumbled toward it, his legs barely holding him upright. He reached the road and collapsed, lying in the dirt, staring up at the lightening sky. He had made it, he was alive. But as he lay there, as the sun rose and warmed his frozen body, Shepard realized that something was wrong. He wasn't hungry. He should have been starving. He hadn't eaten in 2 days, hadn't slept, had burned thousands of calories in his flight. But he felt no hunger. Instead, he felt a strange emptiness, a hollowness in his chest, in his gut, in his soul, and beneath that emptiness a stirring, a need, a craving for something he couldn't name. He thought of Harlow burning alive to save him. He thought of the Wendigo's words, "The hunger spreads, the winter grows." Shepard looked down at his hands. They were pale, the skin loose, the fingers trembling. He touched his face, felt his cheeks, and realized with horror that they were sunken, hollow, the bones prominent beneath the skin. "No," he whispered, "no, no, no." But even as he denied it, he felt the change continuing, the emptiness growing, the hunger awakening. He had been touched by the Wendigo, infected by it. The hunger was in him now, spreading, consuming him from the inside out. He could feel it, not as an external force, but as a part of himself, a part he hadn't known existed, a part that was waking up and realizing how starving it had always been. Shepard stood. His movements were jerky, uncoordinated, his limbs not quite under his control. He looked back at the forest, at the mountains where the ruins waited, where the Wendigos hunted. He could go back, join them, become eternal. Or he could fight, find help, find a cure. But even as he thought it, Shepard knew there was no cure. The Wendigo wasn't a disease. It was a transformation, and he was already changing. He looked at his hands again, watched his fingers lengthen, his nails darken and sharpen. He felt his jaw begin to distend, his teeth begin to grow. "No," he said, but his voice was changing too, becoming deeper, rougher, inhuman. He had a choice. He could embrace the hunger, become the monster, join the hunt, or he could end it now before he hurt anyone. Shepard looked at the logging road, at the path to civilization, to safety, to humanity. Then he looked back at the forest, at the darkness that waited with patient hunger. He took a step toward the forest. Then another. Then he stopped. "No," he said, and his voice was almost his own again, almost human. I won't become that." He turned away from the forest, toward the road, and began to walk. Each step was an agony, each movement a battle against the thing growing inside him. But he walked. He walked until he reached the paved road, until he flagged down a logging truck, until he collapsed in the cab and told the driver to call the police, the hospital, anyone. "You look like hell, buddy," the driver said. "What happened to you?" "Mountain lion," Shepard lied. "Attacked our camp, everyone else is dead." "Jesus." "Just drive, please, just drive." The truck rumbled to life and Shepard watched the forest recede in the side mirror. He could still feel the hunger, still feel the change progressing. But he had time. Maybe hours, maybe days. Time to find help, time to find a cure. Or time to find a way to end it before he hurt anyone. The logging truck carried him away from the mountains, away from the ruins, away from the winter that never ended. But Shepard knew, with a certainty that transcended reason, that he would never truly escape. The hunger was inside him now, and the hunger was patient. It would wait. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and despair, a scent that Shepard had always associated with death. He lay in a bed by the window, watching the mountains through the glass, watching the clouds gather around the peaks like vultures around carrion. They had cleaned him up, fed him, treated his wounds. The doctors had marveled at his emaciation, like a concentration camp survivor, one had whispered, not knowing Shepard could hear. They had pumped him full of nutrients, of calories, of everything the human body needed to survive. But the hunger remained. It wasn't physical hunger. That would have been simple, understandable, treatable. This was something else, a craving that gnawed at his soul, an emptiness that no amount of food could fill. He ate because they told him to, because his body needed fuel, but each bite tasted like ash. Each swallow felt like betrayal. Because he knew what he really wanted to eat. The police had come, of course. Detectives in cheap suits with tired eyes and skeptical expressions. They had taken his statement, recorded his account of the mountain lion attack, nodded along as he described the deaths of his team. "Mountain lion don't usually hunt in groups," one detective had said. "Don't usually leave bodies uneaten either." "It wasn't a normal mountain lion," Shepard had replied, sticking to his lie. It was rabid, diseased." And this Dr. Harlow, the one who burned himself alive. He was trying to scare it off, with the fire. He didn't mean to. To immolate himself, to burn alive rather than be eaten. Shepard had no answer for that. He had turned his face to the window, watching the mountains, and the detectives had eventually left, their skepticism unmasked, their reports already writing themselves. Accidental deaths, animal attack, survivors suffering from trauma-induced psychosis. Case closed. But it wasn't closed. Shepard could feel the hunger growing, changing him in subtle ways. His night vision had improved. He could see clearly in the darkened hospital room, could make out details that should have been invisible. His hearing had sharpened. He could hear the nurses talking 3 rooms down, could hear the heartbeat of the patient in the next bed. And his sense of smell, his sense of smell. He could smell fear. He could smell despair. He could smell the subtle chemical changes in a person's body when they were anxious or sad or in pain. The hospital was a buffet of suffering, and he was starving. He didn't eat the other patients. He didn't hunt the nurses. He held onto his humanity with desperate strength, fighting the thing that grew inside him with every moment. But he didn't know how long he could hold on. On the 3rd day, the men in black arrived. They came in the afternoon, when the light was golden and the mountains were hidden behind a curtain of rain. 2 of them, wearing suits that looked expensive and somehow wrong, too perfect, too clean, as if they had never been worn before. Dr. Shepard, the first one said. He was tall, thin, with eyes that reminded Shepard of the Wendigos, hollow, patient, ancient. "My name is Mr. Smith. This is my colleague, Mr. Jones. We'd like to ask you some questions about your expedition." "The police already." "We're not with the police, Dr. Shepard." Mr. Smith smiled, and his teeth were very white, very even. "We're with a different organization, one that deals with anomalous events." "Anomalous?" "Events that don't fit the standard model of reality." Mr. Jones spoke for the first time, his voice soft, almost gentle. "Events involving entities that shouldn't exist." Shepard felt his heart begin to race. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" Mr. Smith pulled a chair closer to the bed and sat down, crossing his legs with casual elegance. "You led an archaeological expedition to the Columbia Mountains. You found ruins that don't appear on any map, that match no known architectural style. You encountered something in those ruins, something that killed 6 of your team members and left you changed." "I was attacked by a mountain lion." "Mountain lions don't cause spontaneous human combustion. They don't leave claw marks 18 inches long. They don't arrange their victims in ritual patterns." Mr. Smith's smile never wavered. "We found the bodies, Dr. Shepard. We found what was left of them. And we found the ruins and the things that live in them." "Things?" Shepard's voice was barely a whisper. "The Wendigo is not unique. There are others, many others, all over the world, in places where the veil is thin, where the old ways still hold power." Mr. Jones stepped closer to the bed, and Shepard could smell him, not fear, not despair, but something else. Excitement, anticipation. "We've been tracking them for decades, studying them, learning how to contain them, how to use them." "Use them?" "They're weapons, Dr. Shepard, the ultimate weapons. Imagine an army of Wendigos controlled, directed, unleashed on our enemies. Imagine the terror. The psychological impact alone would be devastating." "You're insane," Shepard whispered. "We're practical," Mr. Smith corrected. "The world is changing, Dr. Shepard. New threats are emerging. We need new tools to face them. And you," he leaned forward, his eyes fixed on Shepard's face. "You are a tool. You've been touched by the Wendigo, infected. You're changing, becoming one of them. But you're still human enough to control it, still rational enough to direct the hunger." "No." "Join us. Help us understand the transformation. Help us learn how to create more like you, soldiers who can hunt in the dark, who can feed on fear, who can never die because they're already dead inside." I said no. Mr. Smith's smile finally faltered. "You don't understand the alternative. The hunger will consume you, Dr. Shepard. It will burn away everything that makes you human until you're nothing but appetite and teeth. We can help you control it. We can give you purpose. Or you can put a bullet in my head. That's the other option, isn't it? It is, Mr. Jones admitted. But we don't want to do that. You're valuable. Your experience, your knowledge, your condition. You're unique. I'm a monster. You're evolving. Mr. Smith stood, smoothing his jacket. Think about it, Dr. Shepard. We'll be in touch. They left, and Shepard was alone again, staring at the mountains, feeling the hunger gnaw at his soul. He thought about their offer. He thought about the alternative. He thought about the gun he knew they would use if he refused, the clean death that would end his suffering and prevent him from hurting anyone else. But he also thought about the ruins, about the Wendigos, about the hunger that spread like winter, consuming everything in its path. If he joined them, he could learn more, could understand what was happening to him, could maybe find a way to stop it, to reverse it, to save others from the same fate. Or he could become their weapon, their monster, a thing that hunted and killed at their command. The choice seemed clear. Death was better than that. Death was clean, final, moral. But the hunger whispered otherwise. The hunger said, "Live, feed, grow." And Shepard, exhausted and broken and starving for something he couldn't name, found himself listening. 2 days later, he left the hospital. Not through the front doors. He couldn't face the sunlight, couldn't bear the warmth on his changed skin. He went through the window, climbing down the fire escape with movements that were no longer entirely human, that were faster and stronger and more sure than they should have been. He found Mr. Smith waiting in the alley below, leaning against a black sedan, smoking a cigarette that smelled of cloves and something else, something sweet and corrupt. "I knew you'd come," Mr. Smith said. "The hunger always wins in the end." "I haven't given up," Shepard said. "I'm not joining you, I'm just not ready to die." "Same thing." Mr. Smith opened the car door. "Get in, we have a lot to discuss and a lot to show you." Shepard hesitated. The car was dark inside, the windows tinted, the interior smelling of leather and gun oil and something else, fear perhaps, or the memory of fear. The other passengers he couldn't see, but he could smell them. 3 of them, all human, all afraid. "Where are we going?" he asked. "Alaska," Mr. Smith said. "There's another site there, another ruin, another Wendigo, or perhaps something worse. We need someone who can talk to them, someone who understands them." "I don't understand anything." "You understand hunger." Mr. Smith's smile was back, that terrible, patient smile. "That's more than anyone else has, that's enough." Shepard looked at the car, at the darkness within, at the path that led away from humanity and into something else. He thought of his family, his mother in Toronto, his sister in Vancouver, the nieces and nephews he would never see again. He thought of his career, his reputation, the life he had built through decades of hard work and sacrifice. All gone, all burned away by the winter inside him. He got in the car. The drive to the airfield took hours, through mountains that grew progressively more wild, more empty, more hungry. Shepard sat in the back seat, flanked by 2 men in tactical gear who never spoke, never looked at him, their hands resting on weapons that wouldn't help them if he decided to feed. But he didn't feed. He held onto his humanity with desperate strength, counting the miles, counting the minutes, counting the moments until he could escape, could run, could find someplace where the hunger couldn't find him. He knew it was futile. The hunger was inside him now. It would always find him. The airfield was small, private, hidden in a valley that didn't appear on any map. A helicopter waited on the pad, its rotors spinning, its cabin dark. Mr. Smith led Shepard toward it, one hand on his elbow, guiding him like a patient father guiding a wayward son. "Last chance to back out," Mr. Smith said. "Once you're in, there's no going back." "There was never any going back," Shepard said. "Not since the ruins, not since it touched me." "Then embrace it. Become what you were meant to be." Shepard climbed into the helicopter. The interior was sparse: metal benches, cargo netting, a pilot in the front seat who didn't turn around. Through the window, he could see the mountains, the forest, the endless wilderness that had consumed his team and was slowly consuming him. Mr. Smith passed him a folder. "Your briefing, the Alaska site, it's older than the Columbia ruins, more dangerous. The entity there, we don't know what to call it. Something that predates the Wendigo, something that the Wendigos fear." The Wendigos fear something. Everything fears something, Dr. Shepard, even hunger, even winter. Mr. Smith buckled himself in as the helicopter lifted off, the ground falling away beneath them. "Your job is to find out what it fears, and how we can use it. And if I refuse, then you become the experiment instead of the experimenter." Mr. Smith's smile was gone now, his face hard and cold. "We've tried to create Wendigos before, artificially, through starvation, through isolation, through psychological conditioning. The results have been mixed, but you're natural, a true transformation. You're valuable alive, but you'd be valuable dead too, as a specimen, as a source of genetic material." "You're threatening me." "I'm motivating you." Mr. Smith leaned back, closing his eyes. "Get some rest, Dr. Shepard. We have a long flight ahead, and when we land, you'll need all your strength." Shepard looked at the folder in his hands, at the photographs within. The Alaska site was different from the Columbia ruins. Not stone but ice. Not carvings but shapes frozen in glaciers. Things that had been trapped for millennia and were slowly waking up. He thought about what waited there. About the hunger that was older than humanity, older than life itself. About the thing that even Wendigos feared. And he thought about the hunger inside himself, the winter that was slowly consuming everything he had been. Maybe this was the answer. Maybe in facing the greater darkness, he could find a way to defeat the lesser. Maybe in understanding the hunger at its source, he could find a cure. Or maybe he was just making excuses. Maybe the hunger had already won, and everything that followed was just the playing out of a script written in ice and blood. The helicopter climbed higher, leaving the mountains behind, carrying him toward the north, toward the cold, toward the endless winter that waited at the top of the world. Shepard looked out the window one last time, watching the forest recede, watching the world he had known shrink to a memory. Then he closed his eyes and let the hunger whisper to him, let it tell him of the feasts to come, of the fear he would feed upon, of the eternity that awaited. He was Dr. Shane Shepard, archaeologist, scientist, human being. But he was also something else now, something hungry, something cold. And the winter was just beginning. Epilogue, classified document. Recovered from Site Columbia 7, date redacted. Audio log. Columbia Mountains Archaeological Survey, Day 4, 23, 47 hours. Static, heavy breathing. The sound of boots crunching through frozen underbrush at a dead run. Dr. Shepard, gasping, "This is Dr. Shane Shepard, lead researcher, site designation. Static burst, designation Alpha 7. If anyone finds this recorder." A branch snaps close by and Shepard's breath hitches. "Christ, it's close. It's so close." Whispering, "The others are dead, all of them. Russo, Lena, the students." A sound like wet fabric tearing, distant but unmistakable. Shepard's footsteps falter, then resume at a panicked sprint. Dr. Shepard, it's not human. It smiles with too many teeth. The jaw the jaw unhinges like static, 3 seconds of dead air. The ruins weren't abandoned. They were sealed to keep it in, and we opened. A crash, something heavy falling, Shepard crying out, "No. No, 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 please, I have a family, I have." A sound begins. At first it resembles laughter, high, tittering, inhuman. Then it shifts, becoming something between a snarl and a wet, eager breathing. Shepard screams. The recorder hits the ground. There is the sound of running, then a wet impact, then silence. End of recovered audio. Note: Dr. Shepard recovered alive 48 hours later. exhibits signs of advanced Wendigo syndrome. Currently in custody of redacted. Recommend immediate termination or conversion to asset. The Trail of the YE. A Skinwalker horror. The trailhead marker was weathered almost to illegibility, its wooden post gray with age and lichen, the painted letters faded to ghosts of themselves. I stood before it for a long moment, my pack heavy on my shoulders, my eyes tracing the words that remained. UINTAH Basin Loop, experienced hikers only. Below that someone, a park ranger maybe or a previous hiker, had nailed a smaller sign, newer but already beginning to peel. Warning, unstable terrain beyond this point. Proceed at your own risk. I smiled. I'd been hiking for 15 years, tackling trails from the Appalachians to the Cascades. I'd summited Rainier, traversed the John Muir, walked the entire Pacific Crest Trail in sections. A warning sign was practically an invitation. My name is David Chen, and I was running from a divorce. Not literally, of course. Sarah and I had separated 6 months ago, the paperwork finalized last week. No kids, thank God. Just a house we'd sell, friends we'd divide like assets, a life we'd built together that was now being dismantled piece by piece. The hiking trip was supposed to be therapeutic. Find yourself, my therapist had said. Reconnect with nature. What I really wanted was to not think. To walk until my legs burned and my mind went blank, until the only thing that mattered was the next step, the next breath, the next mile. The Uinta Basin Trail was perfect for that. Remote, challenging, barely documented. I'd found it on a backcountry forum, a post from 3 years ago by someone called Mountain Ghost. Most isolated trail in Utah. No cell service for 40 miles. Saw things I can't explain. Wouldn't go back for $1 million. The replies had been mocking. Probably saw a bear and got scared. Drink less, hike more. Skinwalker stories are for tourists. But something about the post had stuck with me. The isolation appealed to me. The mystery. The chance to be truly alone, truly unreachable, truly free. I shouldered my pack and stepped past the marker, into the wilderness. The first day was everything I'd hoped for. The trail climbed steadily through pine forest, the air growing thinner and cooler with every 100 feet of elevation. I passed no one, saw no one, heard nothing but the wind in the branches and the occasional call of birds. By noon, I'd reached a ridge that offered a view of the basin below, a vast bowl of green and gold, untouched forest stretching to every horizon, the Uinta Mountains rising like broken teeth in the distance. I sat on a rock and ate my lunch, peanut butter tortillas, trail mix, water from my filter, and felt something loosen in my chest. The tightness that had been there since Sarah left, since the lawyers, since the realization that my marriage was over. I was alone, really alone, and for the first time in months that felt like freedom instead of failure. The afternoon brought me down into the basin proper, the trail becoming fainter, more overgrown. I consulted my GPS regularly, but the signal was weak, the maps outdated. This was Navajo land, technically, or had been before the treaties and the relocations and the centuries of broken promises. Now it was public land, managed by the Bureau, open to anyone with the equipment and the arrogance to venture into it. I made camp that first night by a stream, my tent pitched on a flat shelf of rock above the water. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, and I sat outside until the stars emerged, until the Milky Way stretched overhead like a river of light. I should have been happy, I should have felt at peace. But as the darkness deepened, I began to feel something else, a prickling at the back of my neck, a sense of being watched. I told myself it was imagination. The forest was full of creatures, deer, elk, maybe a bear or mountain lion. Nothing that would bother a human, nothing that would stalk a campsite. The watched feeling was just my urban instincts, my nervous system adjusting to a world without walls. Still, I checked my bear spray before I went asleep, and I kept my knife close to my hand. The night passed without incident. I woke to birdsong and mist rising from the stream, the world painted in shades of gray and green. I made coffee, ate breakfast, packed my gear. By 7 a.m. I was moving again, deeper into the basin, following a trail that existed more in my GPS than on the ground. The second day was harder. The terrain grew steeper, the forest denser. I found myself climbing over fallen logs, pushing through thickets of thorn, fording streams that came up to my knees. My legs burned. My pack chafed. But I was smiling. This was what I'd come for, the struggle, the effort, the pure physical reality of moving through a world that didn't care about my divorce or my feelings or my failed marriage. By afternoon, I'd reached a plateau where the trees thinned and the sky opened up. I could see for miles in every direction, mountains, forest, the distant glint of what might have been a lake. I sat on a boulder to rest, to drink, to let my heart rate settle. That's when I saw the smoke. It was thin, gray, barely visible against the sky, rising from somewhere in the forest below, maybe 2 miles away. Not a wildfire, the smoke was too sparse, too controlled. A campfire, maybe, or a cabin. I checked my map. There were no marked structures in this area. No campsites, no ranger stations, no private property, just wilderness. Curiosity warred with caution. The smoke meant people, and people meant help if I needed it, company if I wanted it, information about the trail ahead. But it also meant strangers in a remote place, and I'd read enough true crime to know how that could end. In the end, curiosity won. I adjusted my pack and began descending toward the smoke. It took longer than I expected. The terrain was rough, the underbrush thick, and twice I had to backtrack when I hit impassable ravines. The sun was beginning to set when I finally found the source. A cabin, half swallowed by the forest, its roof sagging, its walls gray with age. It was small, maybe 20 feet by 30, built from logs that had been harvested locally, chinked with mud that was now crumbling. A stone chimney rose from one end, and from it came the smoke I'd seen, thin and intermittent, as if the fire inside was dying. I approached carefully, my hand on my bear spray. "Hello," I called. "Anyone home?" No answer. Just the wind in the trees, the creak of branches, the distant sound of the stream I'd left behind. The door was a slab of wood on leather hinges, weathered to the color of bone. It stood slightly ajar, revealing darkness within. I pushed it open, wincing at the screech of rusted hinges, and stepped inside. The smell hit me first, rot and mold and something else, something metallic and sweet that I couldn't identify. The interior was dim, lit only by the gaps in the chinking and the dying fire in the stone hearth. As my eyes adjusted, I began to make out details. A table, 2 chairs, a shelf with cans of food, ancient, rusted, the labels faded to illegibility. A cot against one wall, its blankets in tatters, and everywhere dust, thick layers of it undisturbed for years, decades maybe. This place was abandoned, had been for a long time. But the fire was recent. Someone had been here, maybe was still here. "Hello," I called again, louder this time. "I'm just a hiker passing through. I saw your smoke." Silence, just the crackle of the dying fire, the whisper of wind through gaps in the walls. I moved deeper into the cabin, my boots crunching on the dirt floor. The dust was undisturbed except for my own footprints and one other set, bare feet, human-sized, leading from the door to the hearth and back again. Recent, within the last day. "Look," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I don't want any trouble. I'll just warm up by your fire for a few minutes, then I'll be on my way." I approached the hearth, holding out my hands to the dying warmth. The fire was mostly ash now, just a few embers glowing red in the grate. I could restart it, add the wood stacked beside the hearth, warm myself before continuing. But something made me pause. A sound, maybe, or a smell, or just the prickling at the back of my neck that had been there since last night, stronger now, undeniable. I wasn't alone. I turned slowly, my hand moving to my knife. The cabin was empty, just the table, the chairs, the cot, the shelf. No one hiding in the corners, no one watching from the shadows. But the floor was different near the cot. The dirt was disturbed there, not dusty but freshly turned, as if something had been digging. I approached the cot, my heart hammering. It was old, the frame rusted, the mattress nothing but springs and rotted fabric. But beneath it I could see something. A gap, a darkness that shouldn't have been there. I knelt, peering under the cot. There was a trapdoor in the floor, roughly 3 feet square, made of wood that matched the cabin's construction. A metal ring was set into one side, a handle for lifting. I shouldn't have opened it. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to run, to get out of this cabin and never look back. But I was curious. I'd always been curious. It was what made me a good software engineer, the need to understand, to solve, to see what was hidden. I gripped the ring and pulled. The trapdoor was heavy, stuck with age and moisture, but it lifted with a screech of protest. Beneath it, a ladder descended into darkness. And from that darkness came a smell that made me gag, rot and decay, and that same metallic sweetness, concentrated now, overwhelming. I should have closed it, should have run, should have fled back to the trail and never stopped until I reached civilization. Instead, I pulled out my flashlight and shone it into the hole. The ladder led down about 10 feet to a dirt floor. The cellar was small, maybe 8 feet square, and empty except for what was piled in the corner. Bones, human bones, skulls and femurs and ribcage stacked like firewood, bleached white by time or cleaned by something else. Dozens of them, maybe more. I stumbled back, my hand covering my mouth, my flashlight beam trembling. This wasn't possible. This couldn't be real. People didn't just collect bones. Not like this. Not in a cellar beneath an abandoned cabin in the middle of nowhere. But the bones were real. I could see them clearly in the flashlight beam, could make out the hollow eye sockets of the skulls, the joints where the bones connected, the cracks and breaks that spoke of violence. And there was something else, something on the floor among the bones, something that gleamed in the light. I forced myself to look closer, forced myself to see. It was a pocket watch, old, tarnished, the chain broken. Beside it, a flannel shirt faded and torn, and a wallet, leather cracked with age. I shouldn't have touched them, shouldn't have reached down into that hole and picked up that wallet, but I did. My fingers closed on the leather, lifted it out, opened it. Inside was a driver's license. The photo showed a man in his 30s, bearded, smiling. The name was Michael Torres. The address was in Salt Lake City. The expiration date was 4 years ago. I knew that name. I'd seen it on a poster at the trailhead, one of dozens of missing persons notices that covered the board. Michael Torres, 34, last seen hiking the Uinta Basin Loop. Disappeared 3 years ago. Presumed dead. He wasn't presumed anymore. He was downstairs, or part of him was. I dropped the wallet, scrambled back, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. This was wrong, all wrong. People didn't just disappear and end up as bones in cellars. There had to be an explanation. A bear, maybe, or a serial killer, or something else. I thought of the Forum Post, Mountain Ghost, saw things I can't explain. I thought of the Navajo warnings I'd read about. The stories of skinwalkers and shapeshifters, of witches who wore the skins of animals and men. Superstition. That's what it was. Superstition and fear and the human mind's desperate need to explain the inexplicable. But the bones were real. The wallet was real. Michael Torres was real, and he was dead, and something had put him in that cellar. I needed to leave, now. I turned toward the door and stopped. The footprints in the dust, the bare footprints, they were different now. Before, they'd led from the door to the hearth and back. Now they led from the door to where I stood, to the open trapdoor to me. And they were fresh. The dust was still settling in them. Someone had been here. While I was looking in the cellar, someone had entered the cabin. Someone had walked up behind me. Someone was standing there now, watching me, waiting for me to turn around. I didn't turn, I couldn't. My body was frozen, paralyzed by a fear so primal it predated thought, predated reason, predated humanity itself. "I don't want any trouble," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm leaving. I'll just go and I won't tell anyone I won't." A sound came from behind me. A low, guttural chittering, like laughter but wrong, like speech but not words. It rose and fell in a pattern that might have been amusement or might have been hunger. Then a voice, human, almost human, "David." My name, it knew my name. David Chen, software engineer, divorced last week, hiking to find yourself. The voice was mocking, distorted, as if spoken through a mouth that wasn't shaped for human speech. "How's that working out for you, David? Found anything interesting?" I turned. I shouldn't have, but I did. I had to see, had to know. The thing in the doorway was tall, maybe 7 feet, its body hunched and twisted in ways that suggested multiple joints, multiple elbows, multiple knees. It was covered in fur, matted, patchy, the color of dried blood, but beneath the fur I could see skin. Human skin, stretched and torn and hanging in strips like a macabre cloak. Its face, God, its face. It was almost human, almost a man's face, but wrong in every particular. The jaw was too long, the teeth too sharp, the eyes. The eyes were red. Not the red of blood vessels, but the reflective red of a predator's eyes in flashlight beam. They caught the dim light from the doorway and threw it back at me, twin points of crimson in the darkness. "Michael," I whispered. The thing laughed, and the sound was like breaking bones. "Michael's here." It gestured toward the trapdoor. "He's been here for a while, keeping me company, keeping me fed." "What are you?" "I'm hungry." The thing took a step forward and I saw its hands, long fingers, too many fingers, tipped with claws that clicked against the floorboards. "I'm always hungry, and you're going to help with that, David. You're going to be delicious." It moved faster than I could react. One long arm shot out, claws raking across my chest, tearing through my jacket and shirt and skin. I screamed, stumbled back, felt blood welling from the wounds. "Run," the thing whispered. "Run, little rabbit, I like it when they run." I ran. I burst through the door, through the gap in the wall, into the forest beyond. I didn't look back, didn't think. Just ran, my pack bouncing on my back, my breath coming in ragged gasps, my chest burning where the claws had torn me. Behind me the thing laughed, that terrible bone-cracking laugh. And then I heard it following, not running but moving, somehow keeping pace, branches snapping to my left, then my right, always just behind me, always just out of sight. "Run, David," it called, and its voice was coming from everywhere at once, from the trees, from the ground, from inside my own head. "Run faster, the hunt has begun." I ran until my legs gave out, until I collapsed against a tree, gasping, sobbing. The forest was dark now, full night, the moon hidden behind clouds. I couldn't see more than 10 feet in any direction. Couldn't hear anything but my own heartbeat and the distant sound of something moving through the underbrush. It was toying with me, letting me rest, letting me hope before it struck again. I forced myself to stand, forced myself to move. I had to find shelter, high ground, somewhere defensible. The cabin was out of the question. That was its lair, its hunting ground. I needed to get back to the trail, to the ridge, to somewhere I could see it coming. I stumbled through the darkness, my flashlight beam cutting weakly through the night. The forest was alive with sounds, rustling, cracking, the occasional hoot of an owl, and every sound made me flinch, made me expect to see those red eyes in the darkness. Hours passed, or minutes. Time had lost meaning in the dark. I walked until I couldn't walk anymore, then collapsed against a tree, my body trembling with exhaustion and fear. I must have slept. I don't remember closing my eyes, but suddenly it was morning, gray light filtering through the canopy, and I was still alive. I looked at my chest. The wounds were still there, 4 parallel gashes, crusted with dried blood, painful but not deep. I cleaned them as best I could with water from my bottle, bandaged them with gauze from my first aid kit. The pain was sharp but manageable. I'd had worse. What I couldn't manage was the fear. It sat in my gut like a stone, heavy and cold. I was being hunted by something that wasn't human, wasn't animal, wasn't anything that should exist. Something that wore Michael Torr's skin like a coat, that collected bones in its cellar, that spoke my name with a voice full of hunger. I needed to get out, needed to reach the trailhead, the road, civilization. But I didn't know where I was. I'd run blindly in the dark, lost my bearings, lost my way. My GPS showed my position, but the trail was nowhere nearby. I was miles from where I should be, deep in territory that wasn't on any map. I ate breakfast mechanically, not tasting the food, just fueling my body for what was to come. I packed my gear with shaking hands, checked my weapons, knife, bear spray, trekking poles sharpened to a point. Not enough. Nothing would be enough against that thing. But I had to try. I started walking, following the compass south, toward where the trail should be. The forest was quiet this morning, too quiet, as if holding its breath. No birdsong, no insect buzz, just the whisper of wind through branches and the crunch of my boots on the needle-strewn ground. I walked for hours. The sun climbed, the day warmed, but the chill in my bones didn't fade. I kept expecting to see it, to round a tree and find it waiting, smiling with those too many teeth, its red eyes glowing with anticipation. But it didn't appear. The forest remained empty, silent, watching. By noon, I'd reached a stream, the same stream I'd camped beside 2 nights ago. I was back on track, back on the route I'd planned. The relief was overwhelming, so strong it brought tears to my eyes. I was going to make it. I was going to get out. I filled my water bottles, drank deeply, splashed my face. The water was cold, clear, refreshing. For a moment, I could almost believe that last night had been a nightmare, a hallucination brought on by exhaustion and isolation. Then I saw the reflection. In the water behind my own face there was something else, a shape in the trees, tall and thin, watching. I spun around, my hand going to my knife, but there was nothing there. Just forest, just shadows, just the wind moving branches. But in the water the reflection remained, and it was closer now. I didn't wait to see it clearer. I ran, splashing through the stream, not caring about getting wet, not caring about anything but distance, space, escape. Behind me I heard it laugh, that terrible bone-cracking laugh. "The hunt continues, David," it called. "Run, run as fast as you can." I ran until my legs gave out, until I collapsed in a clearing, gasping, sobbing. The sun was setting again, the light turning golden and then red. I'd been running all day, and I was no closer to escape. It was still behind me, still following, still waiting for the moment when I was too tired to run anymore. I needed shelter, needed to rest, needed to think. I found a hollow beneath a fallen tree, a space just big enough for my body, and crawled inside. I pulled my pack in after me, arranged my gear to block the entrance. It wasn't much of a defense, but it was something. It made me feel slightly less exposed. I ate dinner cold, tasteless, and tried to sleep. But sleep wouldn't come. Every sound made me flinch. The rustle of leaves, the creak of branches, the distant hoot of an owl. I lay there in the dark, my knife in my hand, waiting for the attack that I knew was coming. It came at midnight. I heard it first, a sound like wet fabric tearing, like claws on bark. Then the smell, that metallic sweetness, stronger now, overwhelming. Then the voice, whispering from just outside my shelter. "David, I know you're in there. I can smell your fear, it's delicious." I didn't answer, didn't move. Just lay there, trembling, my knife clutched in a white-knuckled grip. "You can't hide from me, David. I know this forest. I am this forest. Every tree, every rock, every shadow, they're all part of me." Something scratched at the entrance to my shelter, claws on the pack I'd used to block it. I could see them in the moonlight, long, curved, black as obsidian. They scraped against the fabric, tearing it, reaching for me. I struck. My knife flashed in the darkness, connected with something solid, something that felt wrong, too hard, too cold, like cutting wood or stone. The thing hissed, a sound like steam escaping, and withdrew. "Brave little rabbit," it whispered. "I like that. The fear is sweeter when there's courage behind it." "Leave me alone," I screamed, my voice cracking. "Just leave me alone." "But I'm so hungry, David, and you're so available." The voice was closer now, coming from above, from the fallen tree that formed my shelter's roof. "Tell me, David, do you know what a skinwalker is?" I didn't answer, couldn't. My mind was frozen, blank with terror. "A witch, some say. A shaman who chose the dark path. A person who killed a family member and wore their skin to gain power." The thing above me shifted, and I heard the creak of wood, the snap of branches. "But that's not quite right, not quite complete. A skinwalker is a hunger, David. A hunger that wears whatever skin it needs to get close to its prey. Animal skin, human skin, the skin of friends, of lovers, of strangers, whatever works, whatever feeds." "You're insane," I whispered. "I'm evolved." The voice was dreamy now, almost gentle. "I'm what comes after humanity, after morality, after conscience, after all those petty restrictions that keep you from being what you really are. I'm free, David, completely, absolutely free." "You're a monster." "I'm hungry." The thing laughed, and the sound made my teeth ache. "And you're going to feed me, David, one way or another, tonight or tomorrow or next week. I'll wait. I'm patient. I've been waiting for decades, for centuries. Time doesn't mean the same thing to me that it does to you." "I'll kill you," I said, but my voice was hollow, empty. "I'll find a way." "You can't kill hunger, David. You can only feed it or be fed by it." The thing shifted again, and I heard it drop to the ground outside my shelter. "Sleep now. Rest. You'll need your strength for what's coming." I heard it move away, branches snapping, leaves rustling. Then silence. I didn't sleep. I lay there until dawn, trembling, waiting for the attack that never came. When the light finally came, gray and weak through the canopy, I crawled out of my shelter and looked around. The forest was empty, but on the ground outside my shelter, arranged in a careful pattern, were objects I recognized. My watch, which I'd thought lost. My wedding ring, which I'd left in a drawer at home. A photo of Sarah and me from our honeymoon, smiling and happy and impossibly young. I hadn't brought those things. They were miles away, in my apartment in my past. But here they were, placed carefully, deliberately, as a message. "I can reach you anywhere," the placement said. "I can take anything. I know everything about you." I gathered the objects with shaking hands, put them in my pack. I didn't know why. Maybe as evidence if I ever made it out. Maybe as reminders of what I was fighting for. Maybe just because I couldn't bear to leave them there in the dirt, in the dark. Then I started walking. The third day was the hardest. I was exhausted, injured, starving. I'd been too afraid to hunt, too afraid to gather, surviving on the energy bars and jerky in my pack. My water was running low. My strength was failing. But I walked, south, always south, following the compass, following the sun. The skinwalker didn't appear, but it was there. I could feel it, watching from the trees, waiting for me to falter. Occasionally I would catch a glimpse of movement at the edge of vision, a shape between the trunks, a flash of fur, a whisper of sound that might have been my name. "David." I didn't answer, didn't look, just walked. By afternoon I'd reached the ridge where I'd eaten lunch 2 days ago. The view was the same, mountains, forest, the vast basin below. But everything looked different now. Tainted. The beauty was still there, but beneath it was darkness, hunger, the knowledge that something ancient and terrible called this place home. I sat on the same boulder, ate the same lunch, what was left of it, and tried to plan. The trailhead was still 20 miles away. 2 days of hard hiking, maybe 3 in my condition. I had enough food for 1 more day, enough water for less. I needed to find a stream, needed to hunt, needed to do all the things that would make me vulnerable, exposed, available. But I had no choice. Without water, I would die. And dying of thirst was slower, more painful than whatever the skinwalker had planned. I descended from the ridge, following a game trail that seemed to lead in the right direction. The forest grew denser, the light dimmer, the shadows longer. I moved as quietly as I could, listening for any sound that didn't belong. I found water at dusk, a small spring, clear and cold, bubbling up from between rocks. I drank deeply, filled my bottles, washed my wounds. The gashes on my chest were healing, but slowly. They itched, burned, felt wrong in ways I couldn't explain. As I was packing up, I heard it, the chittering, the laughter, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. David, David, David. I spun around, my knife in my hand. The forest was empty. Just trees, just shadows, just the gathering dark. I can see you, David. I can smell you. I can taste your fear on the wind. Show yourself, I screamed, my voice cracking. Stop hiding and show yourself. But I'm not hiding, David. I'm right here. The voice came from behind me. I spun, and there it was. It had changed. The last time I'd seen it in the cabin, it had been a monstrous amalgamation of human and animal, all wrong angles and too many teeth. Now it looked almost human. Almost. It was tall, maybe 6.5 feet, its body lean and muscled beneath a coating of matted fur. Its face was almost a man's face, strong jaw, high cheekbones, eyes that were almost normal. But the eyes were still wrong, still red, still reflective. And the mouth. The mouth was too wide, stretching almost to the ears, filled with teeth that were too sharp, too numerous, too hungry. "Hello, David," it said, and its voice was almost gentle, ready to end this. "Stay back," I warned, holding up my knife. "I'll kill you." "You can't kill me with that, David. You can't kill me with anything. I'm not alive, not in the way you understand. I'm hunger, I'm need. I'm the emptiness that exists in every heart waiting to be filled." "You're a monster." "I'm a teacher." The thing took a step forward, and I saw its hands, long fingers, too many fingers, tipped with claws that clicked together like castanets. "I'm here to teach you what you really are, David, what we all are beneath the skin." "I don't want to learn." "But you will." Another step, closer now, close enough to smell that metallic sweetness, stronger than ever, mixed with something else. Rot, decay, the grave. "You'll learn what it means to be truly hungry, truly empty, truly free." It lunged. I reacted instinctively, ducking under its reach, slashing with my knife. The blade connected, opened a gash in its side, but no blood came out. Just a thick, black fluid that smelled of corruption, and the wound closed almost as soon as it opened. "Good," the thing laughed, spinning to face me. "Fight, struggle, it makes the meat sweeter." I ran. I should have stood my ground, should have fought to the death, but I couldn't. The fear was too strong, too primal. I turned and ran into the forest, my boots slipping on the needle-strewn ground, my breath coming in ragged gasps. It followed, not running but moving, somehow keeping pace, its laughter echoing through the trees. "Run, David, run. The hunt is the best part." I ran until I couldn't run anymore, until I collapsed against a tree, gasping, sobbing. The thing circled me, moving in and out of the shadows, sometimes on 2 legs, sometimes on 4, always watching, always waiting. Tired David, ready to give up. "Go to hell," I gasped. "I've been there, it's warm, I prefer the cold." The thing stopped, standing on 2 legs now, its head tilted in that bird-like gesture. "Tell me, David, what do you fear most? Death, pain, or becoming like me?" "I'm not going to become like you." "Aren't you?" The thing smiled, and its jaw unhinged, opening wider than any human mouth could open. "Look at your chest, David, look at your wounds." I looked down. The gashes from the cabin, 4 parallel lines, claw marks, were still there. But they were different now. The skin around them was gray, loose, hanging in strips, and beneath the skin something moved, something that writhed and squirmed like worms in meat. "No," I whispered. "Yes," the thing's smile widened. "The change has already begun. The hunger is inside you now, growing, spreading. In a day, maybe two, you'll be like me, free, hungry, eternal. I'll kill myself first. You could try, but the hunger won't let you. The hunger wants to live, to feed, to grow." The thing took a step closer, and I could see my face reflected in its red eyes, distorted, wrong. "You can't fight it, David. No one can. The only choice is how you embrace it." "I choose to die human." "Then die." The thing lunged again, and this time I couldn't dodge. Its claws raked across my shoulder, my back, my legs. I screamed, fell, felt the wet warmth of blood soaking my clothes. "Get up, David, run. The hunt isn't over yet." I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't obey. I crawled instead, dragging myself through the dirt, the leaves, the darkness. Behind me, the thing laughed, that terrible bone-cracking laugh, and I heard it following, always just behind, always just out of reach. "The trailhead is close, David. Can you feel it? Civilization, safety, salvation." I could. I could smell it somehow. The scent of asphalt and exhaust and human fear, different from the forest's fear, more concentrated, more delicious. "But you'll never reach it." The thing was beside me now, walking casually, its claws clicking against the ground. "I'll catch you before you get there. I'll feed on you in sight of your salvation, and your last thought will be of failure, of how close you came." "Why?" I gasped, still crawling. "Why me?" "Because you came, David. Because you entered my forest, my hunting ground, my larder. Because you were arrogant enough to think you could survive, and your arrogance made you delicious." The thing crouched beside me, its face close to mine, its breath hot and rotten. And because I was bored, because the last one lasted too long and I needed fresh meat, fresh fear. "Michael Tors," I whispered, "you killed him." "I consumed him, his body, his memories, his soul. He's part of me now, as you'll be." The thing stood, stretching to its full height. "Get up, David, run, make it interesting." I gathered my last strength and ran. The trailhead was close. I could see it now, the parking lot, my car, the road that led to civilization, to safety, to life. I burst from the trees, my legs pumping, my lungs burning, my vision narrowing to a single point. The car, the keys in my pocket, the engine, the escape. Behind me, the skinwalker laughed. "Almost there, David, almost free." I reached the car, fumbled for my keys, dropped them, picked them up, unlocked the door. I threw myself inside, slammed the door, hit the locks. Safe, I was safe. I started the engine, threw the car into drive, peeled out of the parking lot. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the road ahead, the trees on either side, the world I was leaving behind. In the rearview mirror, I saw it. Standing at the edge of the forest where the trees met the asphalt. Tall and thin and terrible, its jaw unhinged, its mouth open in that eternal smile. And in its hands, no, in its claws, it held something. Something that gleamed in the headlights. My face. Not my face as it was now, terrified and desperate. My face as it had been in the photo from my honeymoon. Smiling, happy, human. The skinwalker was wearing my face. Literally wearing it, stretched over its skull like a mask, the edges still bleeding, the eyes cut out to reveal its own red gaze beneath. It waved at me, a friendly wave, a neighborly wave, a predator's wave. Then it turned and walked back into the forest, my face still in its hands, my identity still in its possession. I drove until I couldn't drive anymore, until I reached a town, a gas station, people. I stumbled out of the car, covered in blood, barely able to stand, and collapsed in the fluorescent light of the convenience store. "Call the police," I gasped to the clerk, a teenager who looked at me with wide, terrified eyes. "Call an ambulance, please." They came. They treated my wounds. They asked questions I couldn't answer, or answered in ways that made them exchange worried glances. "Animal attack," I said. "Bear maybe, or mountain lion." But they knew. I could see it in their eyes. They knew that bears didn't leave wounds like this, didn't play with their prey, didn't collect faces as trophies. I spent 3 days in the hospital. 3 days of tests, of treatments, of psychologists asking if I was sure about what I'd seen. 3 days of staring at the ceiling, feeling the thing inside me growing, spreading, consuming. The change was real. I could feel it now, undeniable. The hunger that woke when I smelled food but wasn't satisfied by eating. The cold that lived in my bones, no matter how many blankets they gave me. The way my reflection looked wrong in the mirror, like a mask that didn't quite fit. On the 4th day, I checked myself out. Against medical advice, against the protests of doctors and police officers, I left. I drove home, to my apartment, to my empty life. Sarah called that night. She'd heard about the attack, was worried, wanted to know if I was okay. "I'm fine," I lied. "Just a bear, I'm recovering." "You sound different," she said. "I'm tired." "David," she paused, and I could hear the hesitation in her voice. "Are you sure you're okay? You can talk to me. We're still friends." Friends, the word tasted like ash. Like the hunger that was growing inside me, that wanted to reach through the phone and consume her, consume everything. "I'm fine," I said again. "I just need to rest." I hung up, stared at the phone, felt the hunger pulse in my chest, in my gut, in my soul. I could fight it, I would fight it. I was human, not a monster. I wouldn't become like that thing in the forest, that skinwalker, that hunger-made flesh. But as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I heard something. A sound from outside, from the street below. A sound like claws on concrete. And then a whisper, carried on the wind, reaching through the walls, through the glass, through the barriers that were supposed to keep me safe. "David, I'm still here. I'll always be here, waiting, watching, hungry." I closed my eyes, tried to sleep, tried to forget. But the hunger was inside me now, and the skinwalker was outside. And the hunt was far from over. I didn't sleep that first night home. I lay in my own bed, in my own apartment, surrounded by the familiar trappings of my life, my books, my computer, my clothes, my memories, and felt like a stranger in my own skin. The hunger was worse here. In the forest, I'd been able to tell myself it was fear, adrenaline, the body's natural response to trauma. But here, in the silence of my apartment, there was no denying what it really was. A craving, an emptiness, a need that had nothing to do with food or water or any physical requirement. I wanted to consume, not just eat, consume. I wanted to take things into myself, to make them part of me, to fill the void that was growing in my chest. I looked at my books and wanted to eat them, page by page. I looked at my photos and wanted to swallow them, image by image. I looked at my reflection and wanted to wear it, to pull my own face off and put it on like a mask. I was becoming like it, like the skinwalker. The change was real, and it was happening faster than I wanted to admit. I spent the next day in a daze, moving through my apartment like a ghost. I tried to eat, real food, normal food, but everything tasted like ash. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw those red eyes watching me from the darkness. I needed to understand what was happening to me, needed to research, to learn, to find some way to stop the transformation. I turned to the internet, searched for Skinwalker, Yinnaldlushe, Navajo Witch, Shapeshifter. The results were overwhelming: forums, articles, academic papers, personal accounts. I read until my eyes burned, until the sun set and rose again, until I had consumed more information than my mind could process. The Skinwalker, Yinnaldlushe in Navajo, was a witch, a shaman who had chosen the dark path. To become a skinwalker, you had to kill a family member, commit the ultimate taboo, break the natural order. The ritual gave you power, the ability to transform, to wear the skins of animals and humans, to become anything you needed to be to get close to your prey. But the power came with a price. The skinwalker was always hungry, always empty, always needing to feed on the fear and flesh of others to fill the void inside. The stories were consistent across dozens of sources. Skinwalkers could mimic voices, imitate appearances, know things they shouldn't know. They were drawn to fear like sharks to blood, feeding on terror as much as flesh. They were nearly impossible to kill. Bullets didn't work. Fire was uncertain. Only certain rituals and prayers had any effect. And they were contagious. That was the part that made my blood run cold. The part that wasn't in the academic papers but appeared again and again in personal accounts, in whispered warnings, in the stories that people told in the dark. If a skinwalker marked you, if it cut you, if it fed on you, if it let you live when it should have killed you, you became marked, tainted. The hunger entered you, began to grow, began to consume. Slowly at first, then faster, until you were no longer human, until you became like them. I looked at the wounds on my chest, still healing but wrong in ways I couldn't explain. The skin around them was gray now, loose, hanging in strips, and beneath the skin I could feel something moving, something that wasn't me. I was becoming a skinwalker. The thing in the forest had infected me, marked me, made me into a vessel for its hunger, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Unless I found a reference in one of the older forums, a post by someone claiming to be a Navajo medicine man. The only cure for the skinwalker's mark, he wrote, is to confront the skinwalker that made it, to find its lair, its source, its heart, to destroy the original before the copy can be completed. It sounded like superstition, like the kind of mystical nonsense that people made up to feel like they had control over things they didn't understand. But it was also the only hope I had. I had to go back, had to find the cabin, the cellar, the bones, had to face the thing that had marked me and find some way to destroy it before I became like it. The thought made me want to vomit, go back, to that forest, to that darkness. It was suicide. The skinwalker would be waiting, would know I was coming, would feast on my fear and my flesh and my desperate hope. But what choice did I have? Stay here and become a monster, wait for the hunger to consume everything that made me human. I packed my bag that night. Not hiking gear this time, weapons. I bought a shotgun, illegal but available if you knew where to look. I bought silver bullets, salt, holy water, every weapon against the supernatural that I could find. I bought a flamethrower, for God's sake, from a survivalist website that promised it would work against anything that walks. I was arming myself for war, for a battle against something that might not even be killable. But I had to try. I drove back to the Uinta Basin the next morning, my car loaded with weapons and fear, and the desperate hope that I wasn't already too late. The drive took hours, through landscapes that grew progressively wilder, emptier, hungrier. I reached the trailhead at dusk. The same weathered marker, the same warning sign, but everything looked different now, tainted. The trees seemed to lean toward me, reaching with branches like fingers. The shadows seemed deeper, darker, more alive. I didn't wait for morning. I couldn't afford to. I grabbed my pack, my shotgun, my flamethrower, and plunged into the forest. The night was absolute, the darkness complete. I used my flashlight, but the beam seemed weak, swallowed by the shadows. I moved as quietly as I could, but every step sounded like thunder, every breath like a shout. "I know you're here," I called out, my voice cracking. "I know you're watching, I'm coming for you." Laughter answered, that terrible bone-cracking laughter coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "David, you came back, I'm so glad." "Show yourself," I screamed, swinging the shotgun in a wide arc. "Face me." "But I am facing you, David. I'm right here." The voice came from behind me. I spun, the shotgun rising, and there it was. It had changed again. Now it looked almost exactly like me, same height, same build, same face, but wrong. The proportions were slightly off, the movements jerky and unnatural, the eyes. The eyes were still red, still reflective, still hungry. Do you like it? It asked, gesturing at itself. I made it just for you, a matching set. You're wearing my face, I whispered. I'm wearing you, David, all of you. Your memories, your fears, your desires. I know everything about you now, your divorce, your loneliness, your desperate need to be something you're not. The thing smiled, and its mouth was too wide, filled with teeth that were too sharp. I know you better than you know yourself. Then you know I'm going to kill you. You can try. The thing spread its arms, inviting attack. But you can't kill hunger, David. You can only feed it. I fired. The shotgun blast was deafening in the quiet forest, a thunderclap that sent birds exploding from the trees. The skinwalker didn't flinch. The buckshot struck its chest, opened holes in its borrowed skin, but no blood came out. Just that thick, black fluid, and the wounds closed almost as soon as they opened. Silver, I gasped, fumbling for the other shells. You need silver. Superstition, the skinwalker laughed. Silver doesn't hurt me. Nothing hurts me. I'm not alive, David. I'm not flesh. I'm hunger. I'm need. I'm the emptiness that exists in every heart. I fired again, silver buckshot this time. The skinwalker staggered, actually staggered, and I saw something that might have been pain cross its borrowed face. That stings, it admitted, but it's not enough. It's never enough. It lunged. I dropped the shotgun, grabbed the flamethrower, triggered the ignition. A jet of flame erupted, illuminating the forest in shades of orange and red, casting dancing shadows that seemed to reach for me with hungry fingers. The skinwalker shied back, its hands raised to protect its face. Fire, it hissed. You brought fire. That's right, I screamed, advancing, the flame held before me like a sword. And I'm going to burn you. I'm going to burn you until there's nothing left. You think fire can kill me? The skinwalker laughed, but there was uncertainty in its voice now. I've walked through wildfires. I've danced in burning buildings. Fire is warmth. Fire is life. Then why are you backing away? The skinwalker stopped, lowered its hands, and smiled. Because I want you to think you have a chance. Because the fear is sweeter when there's hope. It moved faster than I could react. One long arm shot out, knocked the flamethrower from my hands, sent it spinning into the underbrush. Its other hand closed around my throat, lifted me into the air, held me dangling like a doll. Brave little rabbit, it whispered. So desperate, so hopeful, so delicious. Kill me, I gasped, my vision narrowing, my lungs burning. Just do it. Get it over with. Kill you, but I don't want to kill you, David. I want to transform you. I want you to become like me, to understand, to be free. The skinwalker lowered me until we were face to face, its red eyes inches from mine. Don't you want to be free, David? Don't you want to leave behind all those petty human concerns? The loneliness, the fear, the desperate need for connection. I can give you that. I can give you eternity. I don't want eternity, I choked out. I want to be human. But you're not human anymore. You haven't been since I marked you. The change is already complete. You just haven't accepted it yet. The skinwalker smiled, and its breath was hot and rotten. Look at yourself, David. Really look. I didn't want to, but I couldn't help it. I looked down at my hands and I saw. The change was complete. My fingers were longer now, too long, tipped with claws that were black and sharp. My skin was gray, loose, hanging in strips, and beneath the skin something moved, something that writhed and squirmed with its own hungry life. No, I whispered. Yes, the skinwalker released me and I fell to the ground, gasping, sobbing. You're one of us now, David, one of the hungry, one of the free. I'll fight it, I said, but my voice was wrong now, deeper, rougher, inhuman. I'll find a way to change back. There is no back, only forward, only hunger, only need. The skinwalker crouched beside me, its face close to mine, and for the first time I saw something in its red eyes that might have been pity. I was like you once, human, afraid, desperate. I fought it too for years, but eventually I accepted it. Eventually I understood. Understood what? That this is what we are, what we've always been. The skinwalker isn't a curse, David. It's evolution, the next step. A being that transcends the limitations of flesh, that feeds on the purest energy of all, the terror of the hunted, the despair of the doomed. You're a monster. I'm honest. The skinwalker stood, stretching to its full height. Humans lie to themselves. They pretend they're civilized, moral, good, but they're just animals. Hungry animals, desperate to fill the void inside. I'm just more honest about it. I lay on the ground, my body changing, my mind reeling, my soul screaming in silent agony. I was becoming a skinwalker. The transformation was complete. There was no going back, no cure, no salvation. Unless I thought of the cabin, the cellar, the bones. Your lair, I gasped. The cabin, the bones. The skinwalker's face changed, its smile faltering. What about them? They're your power, aren't they? Your connection to this place. The bones of your victims keeping you anchored here. I was guessing, grasping at straws, but I saw something in the skinwalker's eyes that told me I was right. If I destroy them. You can't destroy them, you can't even find them. The cabin moves, David. It shifts through the forest, never in the same place twice. Only I know where it is. Only I can find it. Then I'll make you take me there. How you're weak, changing, barely able to stand. Because I have something you want. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the object I'd kept hidden there since the hospital. The photo from my honeymoon. The image of me and Sarah, smiling, happy, human. What is that? The skinwalker asked, and for the first time I heard uncertainty in its voice. It's my humanity, my past, the thing you're trying to consume. I held it up, let the moonlight catch it. You want this. You want to wear this memory to add it to your collection. Take me to the cabin and it's yours. The skinwalker stared at the photo, its red eyes fixed on the image. I could see the hunger in its face, the desperate need to possess, to consume, to make everything part of itself. You're bluffing, it said. You wouldn't give this up, it's all you have left. It's all I have, I agreed. And that's why you'll take the deal, because you can't resist, because the hunger always wins. For a long moment the skinwalker was silent. Then it smiled, that terrible, hungry smile. Clever rabbit, it whispered. Very well, I'll take you to the cabin, but when we get there I'll take the photo, and then I'll take everything else. Your memories, your identity, your soul. You'll be nothing but hunger, David, nothing but need. Maybe, I said, but at least I'll have tried. The skinwalker laughed, that bone-cracking laugh, and gestured toward the darkness. Follow me then, let's go home. It led me through the forest, moving with that terrible, jerky speed, and I followed as best I could, my changed body struggling to keep pace. The trees blurred past, the shadows deepened, and I felt myself losing track of direction, of time, of reality. We walked for hours, or minutes, or days. Time had no meaning in the skinwalker's forest. Then suddenly we were there. The cabin, half swallowed by the forest, its roof sagging, its walls gray with age. The same cabin I'd found 3 days ago, or 3 years ago, or in another life entirely. Welcome home, the skinwalker whispered. I approached the door, my heart hammering. The same screech of rusted hinges, the same smell of rot and decay, the same darkness within. But different now. The interior had changed. Where before there had been dust and abandonment, now there was life. Strange life, wrong life, but life nonetheless. The walls were covered in skins. Animal skins, human skins, stretched and tanned and hung like tapestries. I recognized some of them. Michael Torr's face, staring blankly from the wall. Other faces I didn't know, dozens of them, hundreds maybe, a gallery of the consumed. The floor was covered in bones. Not just stacked in the corner, but arranged in patterns, in symbols, in shapes that hurt to look at. A spiral leading to the center of the room. A spiral leading down. The cellar, I whispered. The heart, the skinwalker corrected. The source, the place where I was born and where I will never die. Show me. The skinwalker approached the cot, the same cot where I'd found the trapdoor before. It lifted the mattress. No, not lifted, absorbed, the mattress becoming part of its body, its skin, and revealed the opening. Down there, it said, the bones of my victims, the source of my power, the anchor that keeps me here, that makes me eternal. And if I destroy them, then you destroy me and yourself and everything I've consumed. The skinwalker smiled. But you won't destroy them, you can't, the hunger won't let you. We'll see. I approached the trapdoor, my hand on the flamethrower I'd recovered from the underbrush. The skinwalker watched me, its red eyes glowing with amusement, with hunger, with absolute certainty. I climbed down the ladder into the darkness. The smell hit me first, rot and decay and that metallic sweetness, concentrated now, overwhelming. Then the sight, bones everywhere, stacked to the ceiling, arranged in patterns that seemed to shift and move in the dim light. And in the center, the heart. Not a physical heart, something else. A darkness, a void, a hunger made visible. It pulsed, throbbed, reached for me with invisible fingers. This is it, the skinwalker's voice called from above. The source, the beginning, the end. I raised the flamethrower, aimed it at the heart, at the bones, at everything. You can't do it, the skinwalker whispered. The hunger is inside you now, it's part of you. If you destroy me, you destroy yourself. Maybe, I said, but at least I'll die human. I fired. The flames engulfed the cellar, the bones, the heart. The skinwalker screamed, a sound like the death of winter, like the end of hunger. The flames consumed everything, the bones, the skins, the darkness, and I felt the hunger inside me scream too, felt it burn, felt it die. I climbed out of the cellar, out of the burning cabin, into the forest. The skinwalker was there, or what was left of it, a shape of smoke and shadow, dissolving, unraveling. You can't, it gasped, the hunger never dies. It dies here, I said, tonight with you. I walked away from the burning cabin into the forest, into the dawn that was breaking over the mountains. Behind me, the skinwalker screamed, and then was silent. I was human again, or almost human. The changes were reversing, the claws retracting, the gray skin fading. I was weak, exhausted, barely able to walk, but I was me. I reached the trailhead at noon, my car still waiting, my phone still in my pocket. I called 911, reported a fire in the forest, gave them coordinates that were probably wrong. Then I drove home. The hunger was gone. The change was reversed. I was human again, free again, alive again. But as I drove, as I left the mountains behind, I felt something, a whisper at the edge of my mind, a shadow at the corner of my vision. The skinwalker was dead, but the forest was still there. The darkness was still there, and somewhere in some deep place the hunger was still waiting. I never hiked again, never went into the wilderness, never ventured off the paved road, never let myself be alone in the dark. But sometimes at night I hear it, the chittering, the laughter, the sound of claws on my window. David, the wind whispers, I'm still here, I'll always be here, waiting, watching, hungry. And I know that one day I'll answer. One day I'll open the door, open the window, open myself to the darkness. Because the hunger never really dies, it just waits. And I'm so tired of being hungry. Thank you for listening to tonight's stories. If you enjoyed them, please leave a like and subscribe.